All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another reaction live stream. Today, we're going to be doing Ferrus Manus. Ferrus Manus? Yes, that's right. The Primarch who died. That's right. If I do recall, he is, what is he? Iron Hand? I'll be honest with you guys. I know the least amount about this Primarch. I feel like, yeah, he does die, and you don't really see him a lot. I don't, you know, I need to brush up on my goddamn lore about him, I guess. Yeah, is it Fulgrim that kills him? Yeah, I think it's starting to come back to me now. Damn, dude. Anyway, most voted on. I know a lot of you guys, Ferrus has very little lore. Well, still enough to make 3-hour video on. Kind of sad. Yeah, that is unfortunate. And I feel like, you know, some of them definitely get shafted a little bit more than others, unfortunately, and it's usually always the cool ones, you know. But without any further delay, guys, yeah, I say we get right into this one. You know, I don't really have a whole lot to say about him. I'm gonna basically, you know, be learning a lot here with you guys. Actually, now that I mentioned that, do I have paper? Oh my god, I'm almost slacking here. Catch me lacking. Yes, I do have a piece of paper here, and this side is clean. So we got some writing space, and if I need more. Got some more paper over there. I've been writing small. I know I will say, after writing down so much 40k lore, I've actually been writing a lot better, you know? My writing's gotten a lot neater, I will say. That's actually one of the benefits of this. Yeah, if you guys enjoy, make sure you guys leave a like on this stream. Subscribe for more content from me if you're not. And of course, leave your recommendations down in the comments below, what you guys want me to check out next. Without any further delay, guys, let's get right into this video. Thank you guys for tuning in. Battle chicken late. Yeah, I know. Catch me slacking. I'm sorry. But yeah, without any further delay, guys, let's leave a like ourselves. Captions on, quality 1080p, full screen. Without any further delay, let's get it.
These are not my hands. I rely on the augmentation given to me by the metal gauntlets. So much so that the flesh beneath them is now little more than a distant memory. A day will come when I will strip it from me. At least I lose the power to master myself forever. The flesh is weak, but deeds endure.
Nice. You know, I will say right off the bat too, it's awesome we're getting to see some more warrior tier voice acting here. You know, just in general, not on his channel. He's just a great voice actor, and you know, I know him and Amber King work together a lot. It's great that they do all these collabs, you know, because you get so many great quality works. It's awesome right off the bat. Just want to say that I'm ready for it. Also, my hair is a goddamn mess. Jesus, that's what happens if I don't put product in it. Jesus, it's everywhere. Medusa.
Rest. We were not made to rest. We go on, unflinching, unstoppable, unending in our strength. The Emperor did not make us for such mortal concerns as hearth and home, vanity, or contemplation. We are his engines of war, his hammers, beating out the fabric of existence into a vessel fit for mankind to inhabit.
The Iron Hands are not saviors, nor should
Certainly not.
be. A man who cannot save himself is weak, and the weak do not deserve to be saved. For such a man, only death is fitting. This we can provide. The flesh is weak, sickness, injury, mental anguish, all failings of our mortal coil.
Oh my god.
All the pride and projected strength of humanity, how we seek to protect ourselves from the truth of the fragility of our existence, the event horizon that is our death. But where the flesh fails, withers and rots, iron can replace that pillar.
That's what they say.
Immutable, powerful, an augmentation for our weakness. A journey walked by the 10th son, the Gorgon of Medusa, the Primarch Ferrus Manus, father to a legion whose very identity encompassed his own inner struggle on the path toward strength. and the ambition to grasp it all under the crushing embrace of an iron fist. To the 40th millennium, the sons of the Gorgon entice fear within humanity. The image of the union between the blessings of the Emperor of mankind and the Omnisire. But
Damn,
who
dude.
are the Iron Hands? Who was Ferrus Manus, the Gorgon of Medusa? Their story begins in the 30th millennium. Terra, the cradle of mankind, scarred and damaged by the very actions our species had inflicted upon it for millennia. But despair and death was not its destiny. From the horrors of the age of strife, the millennia of darkness and rampant madness, we had survived. In the Himalayan mountains lay a fortress, a palace. Within, the foundations of an empire that would spread to the stars. A child,
I really like this
vulnerable
start
and
already.
weak, lay inside a gestation capsule, growing, destined to become something more than human.
I wonder right off the bat here, now obviously no spoilers, but I wonder if we're actually going to see like a young Ferrus, you know what I mean? If we're actually going to see him in his younger state and we're going to see how he grows up, or if it's just going to be like one of those one of those stories where it kind of glosses over that and then he's like an adult doing shit, you know? We have seen that before too, but I hope we actually get the full story of him, because I really don't know much about Ferrus. Like I've seen him here and there, but he's one of the few Primarchs that I guess we just haven't checked much into, you know, and obviously we're only checking out his Primarch video now after we're so far into it, you know. I feel like it's pretty telling, I feel like, that he hasn't been voted in sooner, and I have to say.
Growing, destined to become something more than human. A future under the tutelage and training of a man that would unite the lost colonies.
Not as
of
bad as
mankind.
Farsight, though. Damn.
But that future never came to pass. The gestation capsule was torn from the ground, cast into the sentient realm of madness, the warp. Claws scraped upon the glass and ceramite, as creatures of nightmare desperately tried to get in. The capsule with its treasure inside tossed and turned within the warp, finally spit back into real space, in segmentum obscurus, hurtling towards a planet in the Thule sector. The capsule began to heat up, the edges searing as it collided with the atmosphere, and with a thunderous clap it crashed onto the surface of this strange world. Amongst smoke and fire, a child emerged, his survival proof that he was more than a mortal man. Air filled his lungs. He took his first steps feeling the dust and smooth dark stone underneath his feet. It was upon Karashi, the ice pinnacle, the largest mountain upon this world, where he had landed, but yet no light met his eyes, as the gloom of a dark chamber surrounded him. He was inside the mountain, locked deep inside a chamber which his capsule had punched into.
Damn,
No
dude.
panic crossed his mind, only confusion and the desire for information. Upon the remains of his gestation capsule, he discovered a mark, an X, a symbol, a name. His name. He did not know. The child began to venture out, exploring further, seeing through the minimal light with eyes that were beyond human. Shapes and structures that were too precise, too clean to be natural. He saw...
This is really weird. I wonder where he crashed. Now, looking at this gives me like Necron vibes, but surely he didn't crash into a Necron team, because that would be fucking wild. But like, I mean, maybe he did. Listen, I don't know. I'm not gonna speak, and obviously no spoilers, but that is quite convenient, you know. I guess crash through the mountain, and I guess in a way he's very lucky that he didn't. That there was actually something to crash through into, you know. Ferrus shows how lazy Games Workshop can be. His name literally translates into Iron Hand. Oh, does it really? Shit. Well, I mean, you know, Games Workshop, they have their moments, but then they have their moments, unfortunately, I feel like, and that's what we've seen, I think, pretty consistently, you know. When they do it right, they do it really, really right, and when they do it questionable, it shows. Let's call it, you know. But I guess we'll have to see. I mean, that doesn't mean that his story is bad, right? That just means, like, you know, maybe the way, you know, maybe the amount of lore on it is not the best. Let's see for ourselves.
Too precise, too clean to be natural. He saw runes. All around him was
They're still asleep? Yeah.
orderly dark
Yeah, it's
stone,
way too early for that. That's why I'm like, that
electroconductor
can't be.
stalagmites dotting the walls and ceiling. He did not know where he was.
Just this
He
picture
did
looks
not know
crazy.
who he was. But he knew what he saw was wrong. It was alien. But he was drawn to it. Like a part of him yearned for the understanding beneath, feeling it resonate within his core. But something was wrong. From the corner of his eye, he saw it. A beast slither out from the chamber. It was enormous. A silver body with segmented plates and sharp
Jesus.
talons that gleamed even in the darkness of the cave. A biomechanical frame that moved with the grace and venom of a beast, thrashing violently as if it awakened from a deep slumber. The
God
child
damn.
immediately attacked it, each primitive lunge or strike, leaving not even a single mark upon the beast as it slithered out of the chamber.
So he's
What
already getting it.
had he done? What had he released? The thought racing through his mind.
I have to say, I mean, he's brave. I mean, he's a child. He just woke up out of his gestation chamber. He sees some massive beast, some insect beast that's like segmented and shit. And the first thing he does is he attacks it with his bare fists. You know what? He's got some spunk, you know, I will say. He's very brave, very brave. A lot braver than me, that's for sure. Goddamn.
What had he released? The thought racing through his mind. But worst of all, he couldn't stop it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Was weak. The thought ran cold in his mind.
Damn.
Following the path of the beast,
That's his
the
first
superhuman
thought?
child
Jesus.
crawled his way to the surface, dust and soot under his fingertips. For the first time, he looked out towards the vista before him, a world of grey skies. Mountains of black stone and withered life stared back. Medusa,
This
a
place
world that
looks like
still
shit.
showed the scars of relentless mining from humanity in prior millennia.
That makes
Gutted
sense.
of nearly all of its precious metals and minerals, life itself was muted, as if the colour and vigour had been purged from it. All of this was taken in by eyes the colour of dull silver, upon Karashi, the ice pinnacle. Shapes in the distance caught his gaze, silhouettes that looked like his own, but smaller. Others like him. Humans. No, he told himself. His path lay with the beast he had just unleashed.
What the
The
fuck?
creature that had bested him. The one that had shown him how weak he was.
Oh my god.
He was curious, but how could he present himself to others like this?
What?
Without even knowing the concept. The boy made an oath, a singular purpose. He would slay the silver beast. The
Jesus.
Shadowlands, a place even darker and harsher than base Medusa, is where the boy strode. Creatures and beasts of nightmare stalked this unforgiving place, and as the child began to grow at an unnatural speed,
So I have to say too, just by looking at it, by the sounds of it, this planet is utter dog shit. You don't want to be living on this world. This is like a mining world, you know what I mean? You know when you play Stellaris and you put like fucking 20 districts into mining because you have like the rich ore veins there. And then you just think like, God damn, this place is just going to look like shit later. You know what I mean? But it's not going to be our problem. That's basically what this is. But in this case, you know, clearly there's survivors on it. I mean, there's an atmosphere. There's clearly air. There's life forms on this planet, and clearly humans. So, you know, it's a world that can sustain life, just not very good. And I guess humanity fucking really had their way with it in the prior age. You know. The only thing I know about Ferrus is that he got the Iron Hands. True. Total Hell World, ice one side, total darkness and horror on the other. Oh shit. Is it oh, what's it called? Is it like a tidally locked world almost? Is that what they're called? Where it's like one side is just fucking eclipsed and the other side is in light? Is that true or no? I could be wrong. I might be thinking about it in the wrong way. It's a Necron construct. Oh shit, is it? So I technically wasn't like off then in that sense.
And as the child began to grow, at an unnatural speed, he hunted them. He was simply one more monster in the mosh pit. One by one they fell.
That's
Monsters
crazy.
Of tooth, scale and fang, under the tally of the child from the sky. Each battle, each near-death experience, evolving him. From his own mind he forged tools and weapons, the knowledge and skill innate to him, as if it was in his very blood. He bested a storm giant in a feat of strength.
A storm
and he scaled
giant?
once again Karashi, the ice pinnacle, with his bare hand. He swam deeper than the horned behemoth of the Sulfurian Sea, all of it accumulating into a being of strength.
What the fuck?
A hunter. One with a singular purpose of testing himself, improving himself constantly. A man who cannot save himself is weak, and the weak do not deserve to be saved. All questions of who he was, why he was here on the strange
And there it is,
world,
ladies and gentlemen.
was buried.
Holy
It was
shit.
that silver beast, the one that he had been too weak to destroy, that plagued him. The great silver worm, a Cyranoth. After years of battle and improvement, the now young man finally set his sights upon the beast that had almost killed him. He stalked it for days, hunting it across the land until he finally caught it. The battle had begun. He threw himself at it, striking it with fists, but even then he couldn't make a dent.
Fists?
Upon land and sea, the
Wait a second. I thought he like constructed himself tools and shit. But he hunted this fucking thing down again with just his bare fists. He's like, and he's just punching at it. Like, bro, what? Come on, man. You gotta have like, I don't know, like some bone or something that you like can beat this thing down with or something. You killed other animals at this point, right? Come on, man.
but even then he couldn't make a dent.
Hey, Anthony, how you doing?
Upon land and sea, the two fought bitterly. All of the young man's equipment forged by his own hand.
Kid Ferrus is barehanded?
breaking.
Okay.
Even his own body was pushed to the limits, as a monster of flesh fought one of metal. In a valley flooded by volcanic magma, the young man lifted the enormous silver worm into the air above his head.
Holy
and
shit.
plunged it into the flow. His arms were burning. The pain was excruciating.
Holy shit.
But still he held it as it thrashed. He held it below the magma until it melted.
Oh my
And
god.
when he removed his hands, they were coated in the living metal of the beast.
Oh.
It was flexible, like flesh, yet as hard as any metal he had ever seen. Like from all he had hunted before, he had taken the lessons of strength and bound it to him. But as Cyranoth, his greatest enemy, his purpose for living was bound to him forever. Emerging from the Shadowlands,
That's how he
the
got the
humans of
Iron
this
Hand.
world saw an enormous figure, clad in rudimentary armor.
Ferrus
The humans of
T-1000
this
arms?
world
Yeah,
had
literally.
seen sightings over the years,
fuck?
spreading the rumor of the hunter in the mountains. What stood before them was more than a man, a being with a face that was stern and brutal, as if it had been carved from stone itself. A man with iron hands.
Oh, there it is. He said the line.
Techno-barbarian
Holy shit.
tribes of Medusa would find a new apex predator. A man who would bind them all to his will.
Damn,
A
dude.
man they would call Ferrus Manus.
And like the thing is too, is we know like he's probably not going to be the kindest to these people. Like in terms of like leadership of a planet, like he straight up said there, he made that oath to himself at a very at a young age. I guess like in the first couple days, months, whatever have you, right? Years, I mean, I'm probably not years, months. I will say, the weak don't deserve to live, right? The weak don't deserve to be saved, kind of thing. And he has that mindset about him, right? That's why he's going out of his way to test himself in these ways, to be the best that he can. And it's like, goddamn, dude, like, rough to say, man, but like, I don't know if he's wrong. In the context of 40K, I don't know if he's necessarily wrong, but it's definitely not the morally right way to think about things. You know what I mean? Because I feel like his detachment is going to make him like a really fucking like switched on person, but guess we'll have to see, right? Guess we'll have to see.
And
It makes Purdy seem social at times. Damn.
Manus. He was
he actually
clad
that shut
in
in?
tattered chainmail, strung with a harness of saw-edged Medusan steel. Blood streamed down from his trembling hands as he forced himself to rise.
Oh,
Before
we're already
him
getting.
stood a warrior in gold.
Are we already getting taken
He
away?
was the light, pulsating energy. He was sovereignty personified. His armor was masterful, the craftsmanship perfect. He was so far above him. They had fought for days.
I just want to say too, real quick. Is that how it is in the books? For anyone that's maybe read the books on Ferrus here, is that how it is? Right? Is it just like now, or was it skipped over for like, you know, copyright reasons or whatever have you? Right? Or is it straight up just like, you know, we know kind of what he did. He united the planet. He's kind of a hard ass, and then the Emperor comes. You know what I mean? Is that kind of how it is? You know, I'm actually genuinely curious because again, I do hear that he doesn't have the most lore, so I am interested to see where. That's how little we know. Okay, fair enough.
He was so
I'm just gonna be
far
interested to see
above
where
him.
that comes
fought
into
for
play.
days,
You know,
Ferrus giving every ounce of strength he had, but it was nothing compared to the being before him.
damn dude.
He was looking upon the most incredible and horrifying thing he had ever seen. His creator, his father,
Daddy.
the emperor of mankind. Ferrus Manus. It was the name given to him by the people of Medusa. He had no need for a name. Perhaps the X on his gestation pod was it. But the man with iron hands had become more fitting. The techno-barbarian tribes of Medusa, roaming around this barren black and grey planet, in fortified land crawlers from a more
Jesus.
enlightened age. If the shifting landscape,
Kinda like a Frostpunk
violent
vibe.
eruptions and swelling seas were not enough, the constant inter-clan strife made for a brutal existence. The people of Medusa were a harsh, stubborn, and ambitious people. Their rugged features matching the
You should
hearts
call him
within.
Iron Hand.
One by one, they were challenged by the man with
Yeah, such an imaginative people. Yeah, bro. I mean, listen, they are techno-barbarians. They are living a rough and tough existence. And they are just like traveling around on what are essentially, I just picture it to be like the fucking dreadnoughts from like Frostpunk. That's kind of what it sounds like. You know what I mean? Like these big land crawlers. They're like roving their way across the landscapes that way, you know, fighting each other, taking what they can. And then I don't know how, I guess Ferrus unites them. I don't know how long he's on the planet for. I guess it's kind of vague. He didn't really say. And I don't know if we're going to find out. But if somebody has like a rough estimation, somebody let me know. Because it seems like, again, it seems like he was there. He killed some shit. He unified the people, I guess, quote unquote, even though there are a bunch of techno-barbarian tribes. I don't know if they all are subservient to him or just like a big group of them are, you know, whatever have you, at this point. And then the Emperor shows up. I'm just curious how long he's actually been there, but I'm sure, you know, I'm sure we don't know, but whatever. Let's keep going.
matching the hearts within. One by one, they were challenged by the man with metal arms.
Oh,
Each battle a test, as Ferrus had been tested before, until all of the clans across
you know as
Medusa
much as
were
we do?
brought onto
Okay,
his
wow.
iron
All right.
fist.
All right.
Atraxan,
So this is going to be one of those
Burkar,
videos where we're all learning
Fel,
together. Okay.
Karduran, Lokopt, Morgul, Ongvar, Vorganan, Sorgal, Averni, Garsik, and Kargul. It was an overlord ship created from violence, but also mutual benefit. The Iron Fathers, the half
Armor
man,
does look
half
sick.
machine, spiritual leaders of the people of Medusa for millennia, bargained their own long-kept secrets and technology for the brilliance locked within Ferrus. They had tried their best to kill him many times, but even they were brought into an agreement that mutually added to each other's strength. With the people of Medusa under his sway, Ferrus also led the bravest of the warrior clans to delve into the frozen realms, breaking open long-sealed vaults and salvaging the majesties of technology from humanity's golden past. But the era of Ferrus's rule was not just of expansion and innovation. War never ceased upon Medusa. Battle had made Ferrus strong. It had made the people of Medusa weed out the weak. And so conflict between the clans continued, all under the watchful dull silver eyes of the demigod silver-armed man, seeing the life and death struggle as a whetstone to steel. Each piece of technology discovered, the people of Medusa looked on in awe, as Ferrus seemed to unravel its intricacies with just a look, like the blueprints were etched onto his mind. He did not know why, but Ferrus felt the process of dissection and
So I'm getting the feeling like he is like he's obviously like a craftsman, right? Like he's definitely like a craftsman orientated, but he's just also just a social outcast. Doesn't seem like he's very social. Doesn't seem like he really talks to a lot of people. I know Warrior Tier voices him here, and I'm sure we're going to hear him talk at some point, but I don't think I'm guessing he probably doesn't go out of his way to have conversations very often, just given his nature, right? And given the fact that like the very first time he saw people, he was like, oh, I can't go to them like this. You know what I mean? Like he just immediately had like social anxiety, it feels like. So yeah, I mean, what a guy, right? What a guy. But I am getting some some Perturabo vibes from him a little bit in that sense, I suppose.
He did not know why.
As you said, Andrew.
But Ferrus felt the process of dissection and understanding always well up.
Crafting skill 100, social skill 1,
like recalling a memory you did not know you had forgotten. It was decades of battle, self-improvement.
A stone can have a better conversation
forging,
than this guy.
and then innovation, all accumulating to the day a golden eagled stormbird descended from the sky. A being of golden light strode forth. Too beautiful a form for a world like this. The Emperor of mankind. His creator, his father, had come. Ferrus had known all along he was different. Someone like this world and its people. An outsider in his heart.
9 feet tall,
the
hulking.
Answers had come.
I'm different.
He was utterly outmatched. It was like when he was a child, pounding on the metal of a Xehanov's body. His best was nothing compared to this being. Broken and bloodied, Ferrus submitted to his father, the Emperor of mankind.
Oz.
It had been missing for years. A goal, a target, a singular purpose, a challenge, a new Xehanov to push himself forward, to build his strength. And there he stood, a being so perfect, because it was purged of all weaknesses. The ideal, the end of the path he walked. Submitting to the strength of the Emperor, Ferrus found that his horizons would take another hit, as his gaze was dragged from Medusa and turned towards the stars. The Imperium of mankind, the empire born upon terror, that sought to bring truth and enlightenment to the lost colonies of mankind. Humanity had suffered the age of strife, an old night, but one singular being would not let us slip into decay and ruin. Once again, humanity would achieve a golden era and mastery over the universe, the Great Crusade. But for such a grand vision, it needed warriors, it needed generals, it needed Ferrus.
Iron hands.
Perhaps in his heart he'd always known he was created for war. The thrill of battle, of testing yourself against worthy foes. He was made for this. The Storm Walkers, the Adeptus Astartes, superhuman warriors created from the genes of Ferrus himself.
Is that what they were called?
Sons to him, as he was a son to the Emperor. A legion of warriors that would be his. But before that, he had to be trained to fight amongst the stars. Under the direct tutelage of the Emperor, Ferrus was gifted with arms, technology.
I will say it's kind of crazy. I've never actually heard their original name, Stormwalkers. I had no idea. So I wonder if they also went through an armor change too at that point. They might have. I'm not too sure. Maybe not. Even if it would be total BS, I think they should bring Ferrus back. I'm worried about Iron Hand fans. They seem like they're not doing okay. Yeah, they get. Yeah, again, I've never. To be completely honest with you, I haven't heard much about them and I haven't looked into them much. This is like our first time really doing that, I guess, in a sense. I'm curious, for those of you guys that play the tabletop and those of you guys that I guess have competed and whatnot, or just like casually went to your shop and played, right? Have you really seen any Iron Hands? Like, does anyone actually like paint them up? I'm actually curious about that. Are they? I don't imagine they're popular. I'll be real, guys. I don't imagine they're the most popular one, but is it, you know, do you see them still? Like, are they common? Are they not common? You know, I'm actually genuinely curious about that. Ferrus, alongside Vulcan were the main forging Primarchs. I got you. Yeah, well, Vulcan, I think, would just probably smack him. I feel like Vulcan just, like, smacks a lot of people, to be honest with you. He's kind of just a goat, you know? He's just really good with his metal hands, true. How do Ferrus's hands help him to be a master craftsman? I ask, as they have no flat edges, so they really aren't great for smithing. Yeah, I'm not really too sure. All I can really think is that maybe his arms, his hands are more resilient, I guess. Like, you know, you could take a fucking hammer to your hand and, you know, it wouldn't hurt you, I guess. Or in this case, you know, like you're like forging fires. I don't know, maybe and I don't know how it works for him either, if he can feel through it, you know what I mean? Like if he has like a sense of touch or if it's just like dulled, you know? I'm guessing like there's probably no nerves in his hands, at least no like visible ones, right? Because like goddamn, you know, like I maybe there is, maybe, who knows? As a White Scar fan who very often gets ignored, Iron Hands get it worse. Yeah, and that's the thing. White Scars do get ignored too, from what I've heard, and I don't know why, because the White Scars seem very, very based, you know? The White Scars just seem overall popular, you know? And their armor scheme is, or their armor color and scheme is just, like, sick, you know? Like, the white looks very nice.
Under the direct tutelage of the Emperor, Ferrus was gifted with arms, technology, knowledge, military doctrine, the best the Imperium had to offer. It was upon Terra, the world of his origin where he had returned, decades after he had been cast adrift. Now it was the bustling heart of a growing empire. Beneath Mount Narodinia, inside the greatest forges of the Urals, Ferrus created and birthed new wonders, and creations alongside the Forge Masters who had once served the Terrawat clan. All were astounded by the Primarch's innate understanding and brilliance of his technological mind.
He just gets it.
And the miraculous shaping wrought by his metallic hands. But Ferrus was not alone now in that category of the extraordinary. There were others like him, other Primarchs, his brothers. The first he had met, Horus, first found son of the Emperor. Again a tang hit him. The Emperor was so far above him that it seemed like an impossible mountain to climb to his level. But here stood a brother, an equal, a still unnerving feeling for one who had become the apex predator of his world.
Yeah, see, I feel like this is going to be Ferrus's problem, right? Is he's always measuring himself to somebody else, right? He's always measuring himself to the biggest competition he can face, right? He conquered his world. He was the biggest dog on his world, right? He was able to do that. The Emperor finds him. It's like, fuck, that's a hard one to swallow for him, I think, because it's like, I will never be better than him, probably. And then to find out that he's not the only one like himself. He's got brothers. So now he's matching himself up to his brothers, and he's probably looking at Horus, and he's probably like, fuck. Horus is probably a big dog, too. He might even be a bigger dog than me, and he is, probably, you know, at this point. I don't know in terms of like combative prowess, how well Ferrus does. The fact that he perishes, you know, makes me think that it's probably not the best. But I think he succumbs in an undermined way. No spoilers, of course, you know, no spoilers because I want to find out myself. But If I recall, maybe I'm thinking of someone else. Let's keep going.
Unnerving feeling for one who had become the apex predator of his world. He was not sure he could ever quite accept it. But here in the forges of the Ural, he met another. A face of porcelain, with long silver-white hair, a slim physique that resembled a dancer's grace. His face was a thing of beauty, as if it had been cut from marble.
Damn, dude.
The Primarch Fulgrim. It was as if he was his opposite in every way. The beauty and the beast. His brother had come to the forges, proclaiming he would craft the most perfect weapon ever made.
No, I don't want to be I don't want to hear Fulgrim be referred to as beauty ever again. I don't want to hear that, okay? God, no, please.
Forges, proclaiming he would craft the most perfect weapon ever made. A boast that Ferrus could not let go unchallenged. Stripping to their waist, the two brothers began their first duel. For weeks, the two demigods toiled at the forges, the sight living mythology to those who gazed upon it.
So Fulgrim's actually competing with them here?
Traded, as often as hammer met anvil, bells ringing to the toll of challenge.
Well, at least they're
Each looked upon each other, each pushed more and more to outdo the other. For 3 months they toiled. The brothers told each other everything of their story, their ideals,
it's actually
their
bonding
philosophy,
here.
their mutual pursuit of perfection, of expunging weakness. Finally, after endless toil, Ferrus looked upon his work, a master-crafted, keen-edged blade, filled with the fire that his arms knew fondly. Fireblade. In the hands of Fulgrim, a hammer of perfect weight, proportion and form. The brothers smiled and laughed, truly, both in awe of each other's pieces, declaring the other's work was greater, a rare display of humility.
Wow.
And without a word, they gifted their perfect weapons to each other.
Wow,
A pact
okay.
of brotherhood
That's
and
cool.
friendship to last until the stars faded.
So I actually had no idea that's what happened there. That's very, very cool to know. When Fulgrim is Fulgrim's blade, that's actually a blade that Ferrus made for him. That's actually kind of neat. I didn't know that, and I didn't know that they actually were this close to each other, that they were actually bonded. Here I am, Fulgrim is still a motherfucker. Okay, he's still a motherfucker, but this was kind of cool. This was like a cool aspect that I hadn't seen of them, I guess. You know what I mean?
And friendship to last until the stars faded. He was his first friend, Fulgrim. All he had known was battle and the fires of the forge, but now Ferrus knew brotherhood. He was not alone in this universe. It would be with Forgebreaker hefted upon his shoulder, with the promise to purge weakness and pursue perfection, that Ferrus would do battle amongst the stars. Across numerous battlefields, against horrifying xenos and non-compliant colonies of mankind, the Primarch of Medusa battled, under the direct tutelage of the Emperor, until finally he was ready to become the general he was born to be.
Very nice.
Returning to Medusa, the 10th Legion, the
Under the
Storm
direct
Giants
tutelage, too.
were remade. Swelling the ranks with the people of Medusa, Ferrus remolded his legion. The clan system of Medusa was integrated into the 10th, autonomous cells, unified by one apex, Ferrus. Again, the rivalries of Medusa were encouraged. Less open warfare, but competition, and each of them specialized in their own way, each on a different path to expunge the weakness within themselves, and bring a unique strength to Ferrus's armory. The Terran-born Hastatis were adopted into the Medusan clans, a symbol of unity and submission to the creed of Ferrus.
See, I kind of, I have mixed feelings about what he did there. I feel like that can work well for you at times, like mixing, like bringing in your tribal, like competitiveness, right? But in the case of like a military environment, like you want ultimate loyalty. You don't really want competitiveness. You guys want respect each other, and I'm sure they still do. And I know why they're doing it, right? You want to drive yourself to be the best you can be at all times. Drive your company, whatever have you, to be the best that you can be at any time. So I understand that, but it's also just like, fuck, you know what I mean? I could see how that could maybe cause problems later on down the line. Let's call it Forge Breakers, the hammer Fulgrim made, then gave to Fulgrim. Fulgrim made, then gave to Ferrus, you mean? Yeah, I got you.
A symbol of unity and submission to the creed of Ferrus. The 10th Legion, clad in forged black armor, set out to the stars, ready to join the Great Crusade. Ferrus had conquered a world, and now he would conquer the galaxy, at the head of a legion of his sons, his warriors, his iron hands.
Great Crusade, okay.
The flesh is weak. Eradication of the weak is all that will prevent humanity's backslide towards heresy and extinction.
Damn, dude.
And like necrotized flesh, it must be expunged, amputated, replaced by the strength of iron.
Jesus.
And do my brothers not suffer in similar adverse conditions? Or are they somehow able to overcome such deliberations?
Ferrus pressed.
I do not know, my lord.
The Primarch grunted and addressed Santar.
Do you concur with your fellow captain?
I am as frustrated as you, my Primarch.
Ferrus's eyes narrowed to silver slits before he turned his back to regard a broad stratagem table that had manifested in the wake of the hololith.
I doubt that.
He muttered. He passed a shimmering silver hand across the geographical representation of the desert continent to magnify the view projected across the glass slate. Several potential node locations were identified by flashing beacons, as well as 2 further markings, a red and green dotted line.
But it fails to answer why we are so far behind,
said Ferrus, glaring at the red line, as if doing so would will it further across the map. Unsurprisingly, it did not.
My lord, if I may,
Desan began, and Santar groaned inwardly, for he knew the mistake his fellow captain had made, even before he'd made it.
Perhaps there is more slowing our efforts than merely sun and sand.
Speak plainly, brother captain.
Sorcery, my lord. I can put it no plainer than that.
Our efforts are thwarted by Eldar witches. Is that your best excuse for failure?
His silvered fist clenched at the edge of the stratagem table, birthing a web of cracks that would have riven the landscape with the catastrophic earthquakes had they been real. Desan felt the imagined tectonic ruptures all the way up his spine.
It would explain why our efforts have thus far—
Ferrus Manus' fist slammed against the map, arresting the floundering captain's words. The resulting split almost broke it in 2.
Jesus.
I am not interested,
he said, and it was as if the air in the stark chamber
Ferrus is a massive hard ass.
Cold enough to burn. The Primarch folded his arms. Fathomless silver pooled across his immense biceps, shimmering and refugent. Desan, who had seldom been this close to his lord for so long, found his sight drawn to them.
Do you know how I came by this magnificent aberration?
Asked Ferrus, noting the captain's interest. Desan hid his confusion at the line of questioning well. Like most exceptional beings, Primarchs were occasionally inscrutable.
Have you heard of my deeds? Of how I bested a storm giant in a feat of strength? Or how I scaled Karashi, the ice pinnacle, with my bare hands? Or perhaps you are familiar with the day when I swam deeper than the horned behemoth of the Super Huron Sea. Do you know these stories?
Desan's reply was not much louder than a whisper.
I have heard the great sagas, sire.
Ferrus wagged a
Sagas?
finger, lost in monologue, and nodding sagely, as if he'd just come upon the answer to his own conundrum.
No, it was a Cyrnoth. He was called Silverwind and the greatest of the ancient drakes. No blade could pierce his metal skin. No spear or lance that I possessed.
He paused, as if reminiscing.
I burned it. Held its writhing body beneath the lava flows of Medusa until it was dead. And when I withdrew my hands, they were...
He held out both his arms.
Like this. And so the saga speakers would say.
My lord.
Santar wanted to intervene.
Did he just fucking finish? What was that?
Imparted. The tale was simply that. A story crafted by bards and the tribal orators of the clans.
That's true, though. That's true. That's a good point. Like, how much of it is actually true, or how much of it is just like story, right? Amped up story, because again, they're techno barbarians, right? They are probably like open communications probably is not a thing on their planet, I'm guessing, just based upon from what we've heard. So it is really just word of mouth how the stories get around. So like, yeah, it makes sense that his stories would be amped up. You know, people would exaggerate, whatever have you. It's like a big game of telephone, right? And it goes around enough times where shit starts getting added, taken away, changed, whatever have you. Yeah. Who made those stories about Ferrus's feats? Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. Like, who, you know, he obviously must have said that he did all this shit, and he is saying that he did all this shit. But who was around to verify, you know? Swimming deeper than a fucking sea monster? Like, I mean, I'm sure he can probably swim deep, but I don't know, man. That one's kind of sus, you know? We'll see. We'll see.
A story crafted by
who originally
bards
told them?
and the tribal orators
True.
of the clans, as related in the Canticles of Travels. It was told differently every time the first captain had heard it. No iron hands could claim its veracy, for none had been present during the lightless days of the Primarch's arrival on Medusa. Only Ferrus Manus himself knew the truth, and he kept that inside the locked cage of his memories.
Do you believe such a warrior would allow himself to be undone by witchcraft? Do you believe he could be so weak?
He asked. Dasan was shaking his head, trying to atone for a transgression he did not fully understand.
No, sire.
Get out.
The words escaped Ferrus's lips in a rasp.
Before I throw you out.
Dasan
my
saluted
God.
and turned on his heel. Santar was about to join him when Ferrus stopped him.
Not you, First Captain.
Santar stood his ground and straightened his back.
Have I raised weak sons?
Ferrus asked when they were alone again.
You know that is not the case.
Then why are we confounded?
The Primarch's collar cooled as he took to pacing his ruined stratagem.
I've been away from the war front too long. My brother's draining my attention. You have become malleable, tractable. I perceive a weakness of purpose in our ranks, a failing of will that holds us back from our objective. Eldar sorcery is not my concern. Finding and destroying the node is. We should have the mental fortitude to overcome tricks. I am leading this campaign and I will not be bested by my brothers. We are strength, an example to all. The reputation of this legion, my reputation, will not be besmirched. No more
Besmirched?
delays. We press on at speed.
Holy shit.
Leave the army divisions behind if you must.
Whoa.
Nothing must prevent us achieving victory.
Santar frowned as he saw resolve turn to melancholy on Ferrus's face.
Dasan serves you unshakably, as we all do. You have forged strong sons, my Primarch.
Ferrus relented. His hand was heavy and crushing as it fell upon the equerry's shoulder.
You make me temperate, Gabriel. I suspect you are the only one who can.
Santar bowed his head respectfully.
You honor me with your praise, my Primarch.
It was well earned, my son.
Ferrus released him, leaving the shoulder numb beneath the guard.
Damn.
Essen is a good soldier.
I shall tell him you said so.
No, I'll do it. Better come from me.
As you wish, my Primarch.
There was a long pause as Santar considered what he was about to say next. Ferrus had his back to him again.
Voice your concerns. My eyes might be cold, but they are not blind.
Very well. Is it wise to abandon our auxiliaries? We might have need of their support.
Ferrus's head came around to regard his first captain swiftly. The Primarch's calm demeanor scorched to ash as something molten.
Well, and Primarch power levels seem to fluctuate a lot between being just a bigger space marine and being basically anime characters that change the landscape when they fight. That is very true. I've noticed that too a lot. And on the topic of that, what is... Because I know some Primarchs have like auras about them. Does Ferrus have like a Primarch aura? You know what I mean? And if he does, what is it, you know? Does he make people feel a certain way about him? Does he, you know... does he have any of that sort of ability? I don't think so. It hasn't really been alluded to. I'm guessing he's just a fucking really base smith, and apparently he's a decent fighter from what you guys say. He's up there. He's better than average. Let's call it in terms of his fighting capabilities.
Swiftly, the Primarch's calm demeanor scorched to ash as something molten and unpredictable burned in his gaze.
Are you questioning my orders, Aquari?
Unlike his less experienced captain, Santar did not falter.
No, Primarch, but you do not seem yourself.
Anyone but Santar would have been struck for speaking so candidly.
Damn, dude.
As it was, the first captain experienced a moment of disquiet as his Primarch considered his reaction. Santar's fists were clenched, the lightning claws poised for release as his warrior instincts took over. Ferrus's fury ebbed as quickly as it had flared, and he stared into the darkness.
There's something I need to tell you, Gabriel.
Ferrus met the first captain's gaze.
It is for you and only you to know, but I must confess it, and I warn you, speak this to no one.
An implicit threat lurked at the periphery of the Primarch's trailing words, and a nerve of tremor in Ferrus's jaw flickered. The first captain waited patiently.
I've had strange dreams of late.
Ferrus muttered. It was utterly unlike him to do so, and set Santar on edge more than any threat of violence ever could.
Of a desert of black sand, and of eyes watching. Cold, reptilian eyes.
Santar had no response. He had never seen his Primarch vulnerable before.
My
ever.
God.
Should I summon an apothecary, my lord?
He eventually asked when he noticed Ferrus rubbing his neck. Under the gorget, just visible above the lip, the skin was raw.
An irritation, nothing more. It is this place, this desert. There's something out there.
Now Santar felt real concern and wanted to end the campaign in short order and venture to fresh theaters of war.
The Legion can destroy the node unassisted. Flesh is weak, my Primarch, but we shall not be slaves to it.
And like a shadow moving from across the sun, Ferrus brightened and became his old self again. He clasped Santar's shoulder in a grip that was painful for the first captain.
Muster the legionary captains. I will lead us to our enemies and show them how strong the sons of Medusa are. My course is set, Aquari. Nothing will stop me, nothing.
With Gabriel Santar gone, Ferrus returns to introspection. Nothing. Not even the promise of battle could shake his bleak mood. Like an anvil hung around his neck.
Is Ferrus
It
bipolar? I
dragged
think
him
he might
deeper
be.
towards an abyss. Fulgrim could lighten it. He was sure. But then the Phoenician was not here. You are all my sons, and the fires of the forge burn as hot in your hearts as they do in mine. Chain them, master them, and you shall wield a deadly weapon. But allow them to rule you, and you shall be lost. The flesh is weak. A battle cry that had been screamed raw from the throats of their iron hands across thousands of worlds in the galaxy. To be warriors in the Great Crusade was a duty and path that required the Iron Hands to become the perfect warriors. And a perfect warrior was one who had expunged all weaknesses from him. Ferrus knew this. Rather than join humanity on Medusa, he had turned to the Shadowlands, seeking to purge himself of weakness by battle and survival. He hated weakness. It had no place in the utopia he and the Emperor was building. The weak made mistakes.
Only him and the Emperor,
The
though.
weak failed and died. A creed passed on to his sons, who despised weakness with equal zeal as they crafted themselves into stronger, wiser, and greater warriors. But on that very journey to purge oneself of weakness, there was a roadblock. A weakness they couldn't overcome. Their flesh. Flesh withered.
Flesh is weak.
Flesh was susceptible to disease and injury. Flesh tires and fails. The flesh is weak.
Start
The
chopping
Legion
shit
looked
off.
to their Primarch and saw his arms, the shining metallic beacon of strength, a badge of honor as the corpse of a Xehanort coated his own flesh. Hands that could mold and forge without the heat of flame. So when their flesh failed them, they replaced it with something more reliable, something that wouldn't get sick or decay. Augmetics. Iron. And like necrotized flesh, it must be expunged.
See, it sucks for them though, because like, you know, Ferrus here obviously had his hands like, or his arms like dipped in like a metal. You know, he didn't lose his arms. Like, there's just like there's a nice coating of shit like on his arms. It's like a protective layer, you know? These guys are just gonna straight up cut their arms off, and that's gonna be that. That's gonna be way worse, man. Way worse.
And like necrotized flesh, it must be expunged, amputated, replaced by the strength of iron. Bionic hands became common amongst the Legion as the decades passed in the Great Crusade. A part of Ferrus approved of his son's dedication to the eradication of weakness, but yet a part of him despised it. Were these augmetics their own strength, or the strength of a machine? Could it be truly called theirs? But what could he say?
Whoa,
His
man.
own arms were not his. They were not his hands. He knew deep down
know
that
about
he
that.
wielded the strength of something else. But he would never dare voice this display of weakness to a legion that required him to be a symbol, an inspiration. Iron did not bend, so nor could he.
Iron within, iron without.
Some
Wait,
had
wrong
even
legion.
questioned why the lines on the metal at
My
his
bad.
shoulders was so clean, almost like it had been
I want to say
baked
it's so bad, but it's
rather
not the
than
same.
plunging a thrashing beast. But the truth would only be known to Ferrus. Launching with a 52nd expedition, Ferrus and the Iron Hands Legion continued to battle across the stars, as more worlds and colonies of mankind were brought into the Imperial fold. The mortal humans of the Imperium would turn to see these enormous warriors clad in cold black armor. To see them fight was akin to watching living myth, as demigods strode across the field of battle. Ferrus and his legion strength, a skill that they had sharpened like a whetstone to a blade, crushed the enemies of the Imperium. The decisive hammer strike. In an alliance closer than any other legion, the Iron Hands and Mechanicum of Mars fielded the greatest equipment and artillery the Imperium possessed.
That would be pretty
Battles that would have
badass.
cost millions of lives were spared, as Ferrus and his Iron Hands projected the strength of more than tenfold their number. Their very strength spared lives. The Great Crusade had earned
I will say, like, an Astartes Legion just fully teaming up with the Mechanicus and just going to fucking town on everything just sounds like the coolest thing ever, because they would get some shit done for sure. The problem is the Mechanicus usually, like, they operate alongside elements of the Imperium, right? But they usually want to maintain their own semblance of, like, leadership within their ranks, you know? But if they just, like, if there was, like, a joint op, right, between the Mechanicus and the Astartes Legion, it would be fantastic, you know, to have the Iron Hands do it, right? I feel like they would be well suited for the Mechanicus, because I feel like a lot of other legions would get pissed off working with the Mechanicus. It would not be a good team ship as much, you know, but I feel like Ferrus could get over it, you know?
very strength spared lives. The Great Crusade had earned Ferrus honor and victory, experience to add to his self.
He helped bring the new tech?
The perfect warrior. The perfect
They probably love him then.
legion. But something gnawed upon him as the Great Crusade progressed. His brothers, his equals, his rivals.
Most Legions chapters hate
Learning
working
of
with
his
them,
father
yeah.
had humbled him, but learning of his
And I want to say to that point too, it's not hard to see why most Legions chapters hate working with the Mechanicus, right? They're a bunch of weirdos, let's be honest here. The Mechanicus, ugh, you know, makes my skin crawl a little bit thinking about them, you know? Oh my god, you know? I'm like that old, like, sour fucking, like, Imperial officer that just, like, looks over, sees like sees some Mechanicus, and they're just like, ugh, you know, they spit, you know, like fuck. That's basically what I am.
Rivals. Learning of his father had humbled him, but learning of his brothers motivated
Just hearing some
him.
stories about him, man.
The dawning
Ugh.
years of the Great Crusade, Ferrus had been found before many of his brothers. There had been a time when there were few Primarchs, but after decades more and more of his brothers were rediscovered. Each of them raised upon different worlds, and masters of their own different creeds. There were those he admired, Fulgrim, Guilliman, and Vulcan. Fulgrim, a true friend,
Oh
and
yeah.
a brother to walk down the
Yeah.
path of perfection with. The one who gave him the nickname he cherished so dearly, the Gorgon. The Guilliman, a master of a skill that had been alien to those of Medusa, diplomacy. But beneath that visage lay a ruthless mathematician and bureaucrat. The makings of not just a
Wait. So it's Fulgrim that gave him that nickname? So let me get this straight. The name of his planet is Medusa, and it wasn't until Fulgrim was like, hey, you know what would be a great nickname? Gorgon. You know what I mean? Like, that's literally the fucking this name. That's just another name for Medusa, motherfucker. Like, what are we talking about here? God damn it.
visage lay a ruthless mathematician and bureaucrat. The makings of not just a conqueror,
The
but
fact
a
that he
ruler
couldn't think of
too.
that one,
Vulcan,
that
like
hurts.
him, raised upon a world of fire and smoke, both masters of the forge and craftsmanship. But unlike Ferrus, his brother's core was molten, kind-hearted, where his was iron. Again that feeling came to him, the one he dared not admit to himself, that he was no longer special, no longer
Oh.
the strongest in the room.
No.
A feeling that at times motivated him, and at other times a crutch. Decades into the Great Crusade, the campaign on 1544 was not going well. Ferrus, alongside his brothers Vulcan and Mortarion, found himself and his legion struggling. Foul Xenos, the Eldari, that vile ancient race
Not the
who didn't have
Eldari.
the sense to bow down to the rise of mankind.
Holy shit.
Upon the desert plains,
Just bow down and let us kill you.
Disan, Shadrach Medusan, Amadeus Duquesne, Gabriel Santire, Bion Henricos, and the Iron Hands fought. A slow, steady wave of iron and bolter versus the swift venom strikes of the Eldari. It boiled his blood to see how he and his legion were hampered, whilst his brothers seemingly performed better. Had he raised weak sons? His temper, the heat of the forge, always something kept at bay by his will of iron, faltered. He raised his voice as a hint of disarmed suggestion that the great Ferrus Manus was thwarted by Eldari witchery. He was not himself. His quickness to anger was far above his usual demeanor. Only
Is it?
Fulgrim was capable of lightening his mood, but his brother was far from him.
I feel like, again, he might just be
Alone with his
bipolar.
first captain, Gabriel Santar, Ferrus confessed, I have had strange dreams of late, of a desert of black sand, and of eyes watching, cold, reptilian eyes. Something had been toying with him, but he dared not appear so weak in front of his entire legion. Or worst of all, his brothers. It was his weakness, the weakness of a human. The flesh was truly weak. Taking to the
dude.
surface personally, Ferrus and his sons plunged into the Eldari's desert stronghold, leaving behind the mortal Imperial contingents, too slow and hampered by the desert conditions. Again, the flesh had been proven weak. The foul Xenos had been waiting for them, ambushing Ferrus and his forces. Clad in coal-black armor, with a face hewn from granite, cold fury radiating from his every pore, Ferrus battled the Eldari, but he became isolated, cut off. A storm of psychic origin tore through the Iron Hands, creating a barrier from them and their Primarch. To approach it, all bionics and electronics malfunctioned and died.
That
For a
sucks.
very legion,
Wow.
almost half machine, half man, their greatest strength had become their greatest weakness. Ferrus was on his own, as his sons held bated breath and anguish at their weakness for not being able to aid their lord. Ferrus looked around himself. His dull silver...
You think that would be like a learning point for the Legion, that, hey, maybe chopping all your appendages off and replacing it with fucking, like, metallic augmented hands is not, like, the best idea at all times, you know? If all it takes is, like, some EMP storm to fuck you up, then, like, maybe it's not the best idea, you know? There's nothing wrong with having, like, an element supporting with that, you know? But to have every person, an attempt of every person to have those bionics, I don't know. Maybe you think that they would, like, learn that, like, holy shit, you know? Maybe this is a massive fucking oversight and, like, what we're doing if this is all it takes, you know? I don't know. You'd think so? Yeah, you'd think so. Question for Send to answer at the end of this. Who is more social, Ferrus or Purdy? Okay, yeah, remind me at the end of that and I'll give you an answer. For sure, for sure.
Their lord. Ferrus looked around himself, his dull silver eyes gazing upon a gloomy cavern system. He pushed forward and then began to feel an intrusion into his mind. Visions, images of screaming dead, the sensation of a blade slicing his head from his shoulders.
Oh my.
A memory of Vulcan gifting him a sword, himself letting his pride get in the way of accepting it graciously. Barbs and insults echoed around him until one cut deeply. Unwanted son.
Damn.
This last barb stuck in his throat. Ferrus was remarkable upon Medusa. He was a king of kings. None could match him. But when his father came and brought him 17 remarkable brothers,
He became just another
he
son.
realized his place. Unlike Vulcan, who had accepted his position gladly and humbly, Ferrus railed. Was he not the equal of his siblings? When faced with the glory of Horus, the majesty of Sanguinius, or even Rogel Dawn's solidity, it was easy to believe that some sons would wait in the wings, or the chosen few enacted their father's grand plan.
Oh, some
galaxy.
sons would wait in the
His greatest
wings.
fear
Oh
of all
no.
was to be the runt of the litter, the weakest, the one left behind. From the shadows it came out, the cold reptilian eyes, the vision. A serpentine beast that moved at a speed that was beyond even his. Stalking, attacking him as he moved further into the cavern, eventually reaching a bizarre, decrepit throne room, complete with a rotting corpse upon a throne.
Damn,
How
dude.
much was real?
So he
Could
saw
not
this.
tell. A half-serpent, man-beast finally revealed itself.
So
as
this has
the
gotta be-
Gorgon of Medusa threw himself at it, obliterating the creature. He was victorious, but with his wounds pouring, his head pounding with rage, he threw open the doors behind the carrion throne, ready to confront the masters of his suffering and manipulation.
I have to say, it was, and again, we saw how quick to anger he was and how, I guess, susceptible to that he was. You know, it sucks because, like, it seems like if he gets a decent amount of praise, and this is the problem, like, ego with a lot of the Primarchs. Horus is, well, not Horus, fuck, who am I thinking of? Not Horus, that's gonna piss me off, I can't think of his name now. Oh my god. Anyway, regardless, if he can get praise, he'll be okay. But it's the case of if he doesn't get acknowledgement for what he's doing, for just what he's doing, for the accomplishments that he's done, he's very easy to piss off, and he also doesn't want to look weak. Like, he's so ego-driven in that way, but he's not ego-driven like Horus, you know what I mean? He's, you know, because Horus, like, I guess at least early Horus is, like, pretty impressed with his sons, right? He's not really angry with them. You know, he thinks they're doing well. Ferrus is driving them. You know, he wants them to actively be the best. He cannot show weakness in any regard. That's the worst for him, right? I don't know. And again, I think it just makes him very easy to mentally what's the word? But not indoctrinate, but mentally toy with. You know, he's very susceptible to that shit. The insults cut very deep. I'm the best, but Daddy never tells me. So yeah, exactly. Perturabo? Yeah, okay, yeah, maybe I'm thinking of Perturabo. Maybe it is just, yeah, okay.
Manipulation.
That's probably the case, Perturabo. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know why. That escaped me.
You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials.
Damn, dude.
Ferrus strode out from the storm, alien blood slick on his torn battle plate. His sons were overjoyed. Their
Horus was
Primarch
Daddy never told me his secret. Yeah.
Gabriel Santa asked
Yeah.
his lord what had happened to him.
Daddy didn't
But
trust me
Ferrus
enough.
told him it did not matter. For how could he tell his sons of what visions he had seen? The serpent, man, beast, of how the conniving Eldari had tried to tempt him by speaking of prophecy, of how they had drawn him here to warn him of a great doom, an angel exterminatus, of his future death. But Ferrus had defied the Xenos, roaring back, "I know I will die, just as I know my place and duty. It matters not if it is upon some blackened world I've never seen, or the very crags of Medusa itself. I am a warrior king, alien, but I am also something else, human. And unlike you, Eldar, we humans do not submit to fate. We shape it." But Ferrus dared not tell anyone of what he saw or heard.
Damn, so did the Eldar actually straight up try to like warn him specifically, or was this kind of like inadvertent, you know, in a way? Because he showed him like the rotting corpse on the throne, you know. He spoke of his death, Ferrus's death, which eventually will happen, right? And then Ferrus here is obviously taking the mentality of, oh, these idiots, we're going to shape our own destiny. They don't know what they're talking about. This is just a filthy Xenos trick. Were they actually unironically trying to warn him? They are trying to warn him? Okay, wow. I feel like they picked the wrong person to try to warn about this. I'm just going to say that right now. Wow.
But Ferrus dared not tell anyone of what he saw or heard. The very idea that the Eldari had seen the possibility of manipulating him, that they perceived some weakness within him, burned in his thoughts. Ferrus and the Iron Hands finally left 1544. Compliance had finally been achieved, and the Great Crusade required their attention. The aftermath, a sobering experience for the Legion. For their greatest strength, their iron had become a weakness, and the warnings of Xenos left unheeded. The decades began to pass for Ferrus and the 10th Legion, spreading out to the stars in conquest as more and more colonies and worlds were brought into Imperial compliance. Eventually, Ferrus and his sons answered the call for aid from an Ultramarine and Emperor's Children contingent against the non-compliant pocket empire of Gardenal. 11 worlds under the iron grip of the totalitarian regime, the so-called Lords of Gardenal. It was an empire of genetic manipulation. All humans genetically bred for their specific roles.
Damn,
each
dude.
crafted towards traits that would allow them to excel at their permanent role in life. They were designed to be perfect.
That's
There
kinda
were
crazy.
billions upon billions of them.
Kind of crazy, but also like the Emperor's kind of doing the same thing with the Primarch, so it's also like not that crazy, not that heretical, you know? I guess cloning, genetic cloning for the purposes of like vocational traits is kind of crazy, but it's also like, I feel like again, like the Emperor is unironically doing the exact same thing if they open their eyes and realize that.
To be perfect. There were billions upon billions of them. A tide of engineered humans whose compliance was now Ferrus's responsibility. Perfection. It was demanded of him. And so the work of compliance began. The Iron Hands descended down to the surface of Gardenal Prime. The Imperium's genetically advanced super soldiers against the hordes of vat-grown people of Gardenal. It was a
Jesus.
slaughter.
Oh
For
my
every
God.
Iron Hand, Ultramarine and Emperor's Children There were 500 Gardenal soldiers.
Jesus.
They kept coming. The enemy was literally throwing themselves upon the 10th Legion until their ammunition ran out and their weapons
That's
clogged
crazy.
with meat. But the Lord Primarch had not taken to the field. There had been rumours circulating the many fleets of the Great Crusade that his father, the Emperor, would be leaving the front line and handing the responsibility to another. Ferrus knew the rumour and the possibility of one of his brothers being chosen to take up that responsibility. Again, his mind turned to his brothers. Fulgrim, his closest friend, an orator, a symbol that inspired.
Yeah, it's not Fulgrim.
An administrator beyond his abilities. And then Horus. They were all the same age, yet to be in the presence of the Lupercal, that charisma, it was as if he had been cast in the very light of their father. Ferrus knew.
Like, I'm just saying right now, Ferrus he can't be salty about this. He must know he's not getting this job. Like, straight up. He ought know he's not getting it. Like, straight up. Like, I'm sorry, not sorry. It's not for you, man. Like, this isn't your job. This isn't your role, you know? Go find something else. Quite a few Primarchs were warned of Eldar. Were warned by the Eldar of the heresy. Oh yeah, okay. I do recall like some other people getting it as well, that same treatment, but it just seems like none of them actually heeded that warning at all. You should listen to Carnage and Eversource story. Unofficial by Vox. Okay, yeah, okay. I think I've actually seen that one pop up in my recommendations on YouTube, so I might have to check that one out sometime. Thank you for that recommendation. If you want to, if you do want to post that in the Discord, a link, feel free to do that, or post it in the comments after on the stream, just so I can see it easily. You know what I mean?
It was as if he had been cast in the very light
Appreciate that recommendation,
of their father. Ferrus knew war, the path towards perfection, and the expunging of weakness. His conquest record was exemplary, but he knew his name was not spoken in the same reverence as Horus, Dawn, the Lion, or Guilliman. The prosecution of war against Gardenal had to be different. He had held back from his usual tendencies. He was capable of being level-headed and diplomatic, like his brothers. He would prove it. The battle upon Gardenal Prime was a slow, grinding affair, testing the patience of Ferrus as he remained upon his Medusan carved throne, in orbit. He wanted desperately to turn to his old ways, a battle within himself, trying desperately to keep it in check. Finally, the Gardenar requested to negotiate once again, and made their way towards the Primarch and his flagship. Miles of cold, ceramide corridors the diplomats strode, finding themselves dwarfed by a vault door, with all the brutality and cold efficiency of Medusan design. Inside a warrior king's chambers, the representative lords of Gardenal looked upon a being whose genetic design was far superior to theirs. Ferrus equally assessed them, looking upon one housed inside his own powered armor. He took it apart in his mind. The shielded coils, the energy reflective materials. He assessed the power of its cores and the hidden energy weapons his sons had missed. He felt a sting of annoyance at his son's ignorance and weakness in missing these facts, but his face remained stern and iron. Leaning forward in his throne, he asked the lords of Gardenal if they had come to surrender. They had not. They replied, they had come to kill him. The chamber door mechanism locked as one of the Gardenal sacrificed themselves in an explosion. Ferrus was locked within, alone. Ferrus felt a presence touch his mind as one of the two representatives locked his gaze upon him. The Gorgon of Medusa leapt from his throne, charging his would-be assassins. Forgebreaker tightened his metallic grip. The great hammer met sword and energy field as he began to duel the equally enormous Gardenal Prime powered suit. And then the room shifted around him. He looked around to see lava flows and Medusan rock. A howl echoed in the air, one he knew all too well. The haunting scream of Azeroth, the silver worm. More visions came. His brother Rogel.
I think they're like mind fucking him right now mid-battle. That's an effective way. Again, he's very susceptible to the mind shit here, I feel like. And I feel like a lot of Primarchs unironically are susceptible to mind tricks, right? Because they just don't know better. They think they're the best of the best, and they're susceptible to that shit, you know? It's sad, but it is what it is.
North, the silver worm. More visions came. His brother Ruggle Dawn standing over him, with his fists soaked in blood, and a face of pure anger. Oh,
my God.
He remembered that day, when he had pushed him that far, and he had reveled in that sensation. More visions came, of the time he scaled Karashi, of the great battles he had fought. This was not real. The other Lord of Gardenal, he was a psyker, trying to put him off balance as he dueled the mechanized warrior in front of him. The battle was brutal. Hammer blows that could level mountains pummeled against energy fields. Vibro blades and plasma shots glanced against his Medusan forged plate. His own men outside were attempting to crack the very vault doors built by a Primarch. No help was coming. Again, the Psyker attempted to distract him, showing him visions of his defeat at the Emperor's hand. They laughed, declaring that they had already calculated his death, that they knew him. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.
Damn,
they
dude.
knew him, he thought. Even my own father doesn't know me. Even from his earliest days, his greatest weapon had been his mind, his will to grow, to become stronger. He had power over his mind, and that very strength drowned Aseronoth. It led him to conquer a world, and even challenge the strongest being in the galaxy. They knew him? No. Only he knew himself, and what he was capable of. The
Damn,
Psyker
dude.
had tried to throw his past defeats at him, believing it would dishearten him, but they did not know him. Not
That
Ferrus,
just made him stronger.
because to him, they were not defeats. They were fuel on the path towards perfection. They were gifts. Ferrus exerted his will, the power of his mind, and forced himself into the present. With hot rage burning in his veins, he lunged at the mechanized warrior and tore him apart with his metal hands.
Jesus.
Oh, his brothers had known rage, but Ferrus's was apocalyptic, and now victory was his. With his head thrumming with heat from the rage, Ferrus walked up towards the Psyker. Words began to spill forth from the mortal human, but he didn't get a chance to finish, as Ferrus rocketed Forgebreaker into the assassin who dared try to kill the Gorgon of Medusa. Ferrus emerged from his throne chamber, but the mood amongst the fleet was solemn. The assassination attempt should never have happened,
No,
or
it
have
shouldn't
nearly
have.
been so successful. The efforts of Ferrus's diplomacy had backfired, and now he had made an error. He had looked weak. It was a sensation that had to be quashed if the compliance of Gardenal was to succeed. Order and discipline needed to be revived, and so Ferrus chose a conduit, an example for the Legion to bear witness to.
What's he gonna do here, I wonder?
I've never been able to find a challenge amongst my own sons.
Ferrus remained as still as a mountain as the Third Legion serfs clattered into the cage.
Is he going to kill one of
Pushing
his
an
sons?
arming dummy encased in Arkuduana's magnificent battle plate. Piece by piece they began unbuckling his training leathers and drilling him into his war harnesses, ignored by the Primarch as he spoke.
Even the Legion's ancients can only match me so far. I built this cage myself, for my brothers.
Arkuduana held out his arms, while his serfs machined on plate and engaged the seals.
Then these bars could tell some stories.
Fewer than you might think. My brothers are surprisingly reluctant.
Arkuduana's eyebrow arched. The armorers moved to his legs.
Oh?
Fulgrim would joke that he would die with shame, were his sons to see him defeated. Vulcan said that he did not want to hurt me. Me? I told him that I would make a finer weapon than that I gifted Fulgrim, and if he would try.
And?
And these bars have few stories to tell.
But not none.
Ferrus's eyes glinted like daggers. His smile did not blunt their edge.
I am honored, Lord.
The armorers pulled and prodded at Arkuduana's seals. The ranking serf work approached with his helmet. Arkuduana waved him away. He was about to fight a Primarch, and he intended to savor it.
I do you no honor.
I know.
Your birth father fought the Emperor.
He did.
My brother speaks highly of him.
I know.
He says you have no equal.
Arkuduana shrugged, but felt a tingle of pride. Not so much in the fact as that it had been spoken by a Primarch.
The Emperor's children boast many fine swordsmen.
That they do.
Ashkario has the potential to be great, and there is a brilliant young legionary in the second company called Lucius, who may yet reach my standard, if he can tear his face from the mirror.
But they are not you.
They are not me.
I know how that feels.
Arkuduana pivoted around the waist, made some practice punches, testing the armorer's work. The power servos whined as he drew Timur and Athea. The serfs had rebelted his scabbards over his power armor, and the two Chanabral sabers emerged from their silks with the most expectant of sighs. An unmodified mortal at the farthest part of the hall would have felt it. Ferrus's eyes flickered with self-hatred. Ferrus Manus attacked before the command to begin had left his mouth. Given his Goliath physique, his speed was staggering. A lesser duelist than Arkuduana would have been pulverized on the spot.
I want to say they're very weird that, like, his eyes glisten with self-hatred there. Like, he's literally like, you know, I'm guessing this is just purely an example. He doesn't necessarily want to do this. But goddamn, dude, like, self-hatred, holy shit, you know?
Staggering. A lesser duelist than Arkuduana would have been pulverized on the spot. And even he was forced into an admiring grasp, as the smoldering metal fist thundered past his eyes. The Primarch was holding nothing back, and with a roar he came again. A thrilling combination of terror and exhalation filled Arkuduana as he ducked between blows. Under them, away, fed by a lightness of heart he had not felt with a sword in his hand since the first time he had stood before Old Corinth. Before the unification had been won, Ferrus bellowed and swung with his left. Arkuduana bent under it and allowed it to clang into the bars. He rolled back, always back. He did not bother using his swords to parry. It would have been like blocking a bane blade. He ducked and weaved, danced and slid, swords a blur of feint and misdirection. His movements
That
were
makes sense, though.
far.
At least this fight makes sense, where it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna try to even block a Primarch's fucking swing, because I would shatter both my arms if I tried still. You know, like, you gotta give him credit where it's due. It actually at least makes sense, this fight. But he is holding his own. He's weaving out of the way of this Primarch. That's what I mean. It is strange to see the Primarchs be overpowered and then underpowered when they need to be. It is kind of strange a little bit, but here we go. Let's keep watching.
Feint and misdirection. His movements were intuitive, faster than Jean and Hans thought, but compared to the gap between the audacious youngster and the grizzled Thunder Warrior, that between Legionary and Primarch was a yawning one. He grinned. He was going to have to try. With sheer, bludgeoning power, Ferrus forced him up against the bars. His swords bit at the vulnerable points in the Primarch's armor. Ferrus ignored them. Stings from a persistent insect. He feinted with Timur, drawing the Primarch's eyes, and then used the lengths of Athenia to stab at the Primarch's groin. The master-crafted saber pierced the heavy mail, only to become wedged between a pair of crushed rings. Ferrus gave a snarl and smacked the blade with his wrist. The ancient Grecan blade shattered, rune-inscribed metal shards daggering the floor at Arkuduana's feet. The force of the blow splintered his gauntlets, sent hairline fractures running up Arkuduana's vambrace, and almost pulled his shoulder from its socket.
Jesus.
He cried out in glee.
Why do you laugh?
Ferrus drew back. Even unarmed, he had reach. Arkuduana could only shrug, enfolding Timur in a two-handed grip.
Because...
Spitting with anger, Ferrus drove his fist at Arkuduana's chest. Too big to avoid. Too fast. He cried out in shock as his breastplate caved in, splitting the Palatine Aquila into frayed halves. Gold leaf fluttering around the hot liloquence of Ferrus's arm. Knuckles ground in. His ribplate cracked, then shattered. Before he had even registered the pain, he was flying, crashing into the bars with force enough to break more bones. The bars themselves were made of firmer stuff, built by Ferrus's own hands to contain the might of a Primarch. They did not bend. Vibrating with a metallic basso profundo, they flung him back into the ring, sprawled on his chest and crying out for the pain of his fractured ribs. A great weight pushed into his shoulder, eliciting a murmur of pain, then closed over it, to haul him up by the golden fretwork. Ferrus's eyes burned into his, consumed them in his expression incandescent as he drew back his arm to deliver a finishing blow.
I, too, once fought the Emperor. He is a greater being than you could imagine. How did your mortal father manage it?
Arkuduana could barely see the fist before him. His eye had swollen. His face puffed and bloodied.
He wished to give him every opportunity to yield.
He gave a laugh, coughing it up in gurgles. Ferrus frowned.
Tell me why you laugh.
Do you not see?
Ferrus's grip tightened, a splintering of ceramite. Arkuduana chuckled, winced, and then chuckled again.
This is what we were born to do. Both of us. To fight, and eventually, one day, to lose. It feels good.
Some of the aggression left Ferrus's eyes.
And one thing at least I was right. Our legions have much to learn from one another.
He lowered Arkuduana to the ground, where the captain proceeded to fold bonelessly over his knees.
What is now past was your war. What now commences shall be mine. There will be no feast of celebration, no proclamation of victory. I do not claim worlds. I conquer them. My victories are their own proclamation. I will present my brother Guilliman with ash around a barren star. That shall be my proclamation, and the Gardenelle shall forevermore be remembered only for the manner in which they fell.
His gaze passed over his warriors, silent before his scorn, for what they had just witnessed was not a contest, it was a lesson.
I've sought to lead as Fulgrim of Guilliman would have led, but that is not my way. It is not the Medusan way. The Gardenelle have had ample opportunity to yield.
Grumbles of agreement swept the hall.
Time to genocide them all.
On the spot, blinking up
the
at
women
the Primarch,
and the children
felt
too.
Serious to speak
like
out.
Damn.
The Emperor desired these worlds intact.
The Gardenelle rule over 11 worlds. I will give my father 10.
The 413th expedition will not act in defiance of the Emperor.
You are derelict, Chapter Master.
Damn,
Sirius
dude.
straightened against his wedged spear.
I serve the Emperor of Terra, the ideals of his great crusade, my father and his brothers. In that sequence, I will not defy the first of my masters by ordering the destruction of Gardenelle Prime.
For a long time, Ferrus glared down at the Ultramarine, and then a smile found its way across his face.
Perhaps if you were the 413th, where you belonged, then you would have known. You are no longer in command of the expedition fleet.
You do not have that authority.
Guilliman can restore your command once he arrives. I'll be done with you by then. Until
Damn,
that happens,
dude.
your orders come from Iron Father Moore. He knows what I expect of my warriors.
That's crazy. Listen up, you Ultramarine fuck, you're working for me now, and if you have any complaints, you can wait till Daddy gets here to free you. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? Like, he doesn't have that authority, and yet what's gonna happen if he says no? You know what I mean? Like, he's just gonna get somebody that is going to allow him to do what he wants. You know, he is a Primarch. I mean, no one's going to stop him necessarily, right? And I guess in service of the Emperor, if Guilliman isn't directly there, like, yeah, what do you do if a Primarch's trying to push you around? Not even push you around, but give you orders, right? Might not be your Primarch, but I guess you still technically have to do it at this point, right? Like, it's that or kind of death, I suppose. Love how they mention that even unarmed he's got reach advantage against the dual-wielding Astartes. Yeah, Ferrus is just a fucking big dude, right? Obviously, Primarchs are just big in general, but I think he's got some extra shit behind him, you know? He's pretty large.
That's the problem with the path of improvement. The delusion of superiority. Of purity. You lose the ability to listen. From such black and white views of right and wrong, you become unreceptive to the wisdom of others.
They both knew what this was. They could see it in each other's eyes. An unspoken truth that did not need to be verbalized.
Haven't done the Fulgrim video yet? I don't think so. I don't think I have yet, no.
Primarchs. Ferrus glared down upon Arcaduana.
I do know a bit more about Fulgrim, but I haven't done his video.
Emperor's Children Legion. Ferrus had challenged the legendary champion of the Third. It was a display. An unfair fight, but one to unleash the Legion's shame and unite them. Arcaduana was the best, a symbol to the Third, whose very own father had the honor of dueling the Emperor in the early years of the Great Crusade. Arcaduana was the best. He knew. There was no arrogance in that statement. Being the deadliest in the room was a sensation that Ferrus knew all too well. The duel began. Ferrus let flow the feelings of self-hate and shame. He roared with rage at his error, his weakness, and lunged bare-fisted at Arcaduana. It was like a man fighting a wild beast, as Arcaduana tried desperately to dodge the furious attacks of the metal-armed creature. The champion of the Third lasted longer than any legionary before, but he still faced a Primarch. The champion's body was crushed, his ribs shattered as a living weapon nearly beat him to death. But where Ferrus's features were of snarling hate, Arcaduana was smiling. He was laughing. Tell me, why do you laugh? Ferrus spat in his victim's face. Don't you see? This is what we were born to do. Both of us. To fight. And eventually one day, lose. It feels good. The words cut deep. The anger melted in an instant. It seemed another understood the gift of being beaten. It seemed another understood the gift of defeat. He was a Primarch. Triumphs and glory were common, but defeats, challenges that pushed him to the edge of his abilities, they were precious. That day, the
wants to
Emperor
learn
of
from it.
mankind,
That's an interesting perspective.
that golden beacon, that perfect warrior, handed him such an utter defeat. He saw the new possible heights. He saw the lesson and potential. He saw what true strength was. He saw his own weaknesses and how to eliminate them. That's the problem with the path of improvement. The delusion of superiority, of purity. You lose the ability to listen. From such black and white views of right and wrong, you become unreceptive to the wisdom of others. The Emperor had humbled him, shattered his self-delusion as the strongest being, and had shown him that he was not at the end of his journey towards perfection. He had only just begun it. Perhaps there was things that Fulgrim, Guilliman, or Horus could teach him, but he was not them. He finally saw it now. The path, not to be the best Primarch, the one lauded like his brothers. What he needed to be was the best Ferrus Manus. He gently placed the wounded Arcaduana to the ground and looked to his sons, declaring, "The Cardinal rule over 11 worlds. I will give my father 10. He was the Gorgon of Medusa. He was no orator or diplomat. He was a conqueror. Cardinal Prime fell under the full weight of Ferrus and the Iron Hands Legion, no longer holding back. Destruction and devastation ground the Cardinal into submission and compliance. For nearly 2 centuries, Ferrus had been at war.
To be fair, they did just try to assassinate a Primarch, which is kind of insane work. Like, and the fact that they actually got like swings in or mental attacks in on the Primarch is kind of insane, right? Like, shouldn't have happened. He is right for it, but you know, the way he described like getting beaten as a learning experience and finding somebody else that he beat the shit out of, that is now viewing that as a learning experience. It feels good to lose. That's pretty cool to see. And why can't Primarchs accept the basic truth that perfection is impossible? I honestly think that probably just has something to do with the fact that a lot of Primarchs, like, again, they conquered their world. They were the best on their world by a lot, by not a small margin. They were the best of the best. So now they're in an environment where they're no longer the best. They're no longer perfect or viewed as perfect, and they can be judged by other people that are equal to them, I guess. And it puts a lot of them on a pedestal, and they get really uppity about it, I think. And that's just kind of how it is, you know. They're not emotionally mature enough to like know better, that it doesn't have to be a fucking competition in that regard, you know, all the time.
Compliance. For nearly 2 centuries, Ferrus had been at war in the stars. Long had been since his early life on Medusa. But once again, the balance of the galaxy shifted. The room...
Also, real quick, guys, I see there's a lot of you in here. There's 20 people in here, 22 people in here. If you guys are enjoying the stream, hit that like button. It does help out a ton, guys. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you're not. Appreciate it, guys. Also, come join our Discord. We don't usually plug that. Come on down, join our Discord. Good to see you guys there.
On Medusa. But once again, the balance of the galaxy shifted. The rumors were true. And at the dawning of the 32nd millennium, upon the world of Ulanor, the Emperor of mankind, his father declared his stepping down from the Great Crusade. He would return to Terra to consolidate what the Imperium had gained. It broke the heart of all of the Primarchs. Ferrus anguished at the thought of not seeing his father for a long time. But the Great Crusade would not be leaderless. One brother would be elevated above the rest. War Master Horus. Ferrus could not begrudge his brother, for he had earned it. He knew he was a symbol the Imperium needed. With the Emperor returning to Terra,
okay, well, at least he took it on the chin.
Of the Great Crusade
I really thought he'd get uppity about it.
Again, the 52nd Fleet, Ferrus Manus and the Iron Hand set out to the stars, bringing thousands upon thousands of worlds into Imperial compliance. It was in the years following the coronation of War Master Horus that Ferrus and the Iron Hands found themselves on the tail of a new foe. Orbiting the sun of a desolate system was a nomadic fleet, containing colony ships from Terra's earliest expansions, millennia before. But to the Imperium's scouts' disgust, they found a confederation of humans and Xenos, living together side by side.
Disgusting.
The diaspora.
Burn them.
A society not permitted in the bounds of the Imperium. The humans were offered a place inside the Empire, but they refused, leaving only war. For months, Ferrus and his legion chased the shadows of this fleet, finding themselves outmaneuvered by the faster, sleek vessels. Ambush after ambush had begun to take a toll.
They found the Star Trek people? Yeah, literally.
Of his captains.
Like,
his
what the
temper
fuck?
only once again, soothed by the words of Gabriel Santar. But the situation had become clear. The Diasporax required the Iron Hands to be the hammer, but they needed their anvil. Ferrus declared to his sons that their brother Legion, the Emperor's children, had been summoned, and would join them soon in purging these Xenos. The roars almost deafened the chamber, as the two closest brothers and legions would once more join in battle. Aboard his brother's ship, Ferrus strode onto the embarkation deck. The warriors of the Third looked upon the enormous Primarch, his face like granite, and his features stern and brutal. His nickname, the Gorgon, earned. Ferrus looked up towards his brother Fulgrim, and a smile, so warm and honest, beamed from him. They embraced like family, For what felt like the first time in decades, Ferrus relaxed, truly comfortable. The warmness of his smile and his tone, a shock to his accompanying iron hands. Battle plans were made immediately before the two Primarchs retired to Fulgrim's
It is
private
cool how
quarters.
close they are.
It had
Whoa.
become more of a gallery than a warship, the Gorgon remarked. Art was a distraction to him, but yet he respected it as part of his brother's path towards perfection. The galaxy had changed since they had last seen each other. The era of War Master Horus had kept them apart for too long. Each of them reveled in the time they had together, but they had changed too. The title of prominence among his brothers to Ferrus had seemed less enticing. He saw the weight of responsibility on Horus's shoulders. Realizing that being the best Ferrus Manus, the path of perfection diverged from the path of War Master. But the change in his brother did not slip Ferrus. He knew his brother better than anyone. His usual bravado and confidence, a facade he knew to be a performance to inspire others, seemed like it was becoming the real thing. It unnerved him, but yet his love for Fulgrim was blinding. The hunt for the Diasporax had begun. Ferrus let loose the moorings of his fleet and roared towards the hybrid human and Xenos fleet. They had always been on the back foot, but now they had them pinned. The battle was fierce, but anchored in one place. The larger colony ships of the Diasporax were overwhelmed. The lighter cruisers unable to retreat and engage on their own terms, with the corridors slick with human and alien blood. The 3rd and 10th Legion had purged this filth, the humans choosing to fight rather than giving up their Xenos allies. The battle had been won, but something had felt wrong to Ferrus. He had placed his flagship in front of his brothers, in the midst of battle, shielding him from a barrage. But this gesture was not reciprocated. Arriving aboard Fulgrim's flagship, Ferrus and Gabriel Santar and his Morlocks arrived to what felt like a gauntlet of Fulgrim's warriors. The ceremony of fraternity had been conducted in haste, uncomfortably formal for what should have been the closest brothers and legions. Ferrus understood that the legions had not left as friends. Shielding his brother's ship, the idea of being saved. For a man on the road towards perfection, he knew this may have wounded the pride of Fulgrim. He had known him for centuries, but still this reaction surprised him. It would be only a few short years
You'll find out more
after the
about why things
destruction
are
of
like this in Fulgrim's
Diasporax
video? Okay.
that Fulgrim sent word that he was making an unscheduled visit to his beloved brother. That warm, honest smile creeped across Ferrus's face as he welcomed again Fulgrim into his private forge, eager to hear the word that his brother had promised could only be spoken in person.
Things
I made
aren't
that
quite as
Vulcan
fair as
more than
sees them.
150 years ago.
Said Ferrus.
So, why is it still here?
You know what Vulcan's like. He loves to work in the metal, and he doesn't trust anything that hasn't had the beat of a hammer laid upon it, or the fire of the forge in its heart.
Ferrus held up his shimmering, mercurial hands and said,
I don't think he liked the fact that I could shape metal without heat or hammer. He returned it to me a while later, saying it should remain here with its creator. I think Nocturne's superstitions aren't as forgotten as our brother would have us believe.
Fulgrim reached up to touch the weapon, but curled his fingers into a fist before they touched the warm metal. To touch such a perfect weapon without firing it would be wrong.
I understand that there is a certain attraction in a handsomely made weapon, but to apply such artistry to a thing designed to kill seems extravagant,
said Fulgrim.
Really?
Chuckled Ferrus, hefting Forgebreaker and pointing it at Fireblade, sheathed at Fulgrim's hip.
Then what were you doing in the Urals?
Fulgrim drew his sword and turned it in his hands, so that it caught the light and threw dazzling red reflections around the forge.
That was a contest,
smiled Fulgrim.
I didn't know you then. And I wasn't going to have you outdo me, was I?
Ferrus circled the iron forge, pointing his warhammer at the magnificent creations he had wrought, and which hung upon the wall.
There is nothing in weapons, machinery, or engineering devices that obliges them to be ugly. Ugliness is a measure of imperfection. You of all people should appreciate that.
Then you must be perfectly imperfect,
said Fulgrim, his smile robbing the comment of malice.
I'll leave being pretty to you and Sanguinius, my brother. I'll stick to fighting. Now come on, what's this all about? You speak of the future of the Great Crusade, and then want to talk of weapons in old times. What's going on?
Fulgrim tensed, suddenly anxious at what he was to ask of his brother. He had hoped to approach the matter surreptitiously, feeling out his brother's position and the likelihood of him joining them willingly. But with typical Medusan directness, Ferrus Manus had come right out and demanded to know his purpose. How artless and blunt.
When did you last see the Emperor?
Asked Fulgrim.
The Emperor? What does that have to do with anything?
Indulge me. When was it?
A long time ago,
admitted Ferrus.
Arena Septimus, on the crystal headlands above the acid oceans.
I last saw him on Ulanor.
Ulanor?
The War Master's coronation,
said Fulgrim, moving towards the great anvil and trailing his fingers along the cold metal.
I wept when he told us that he believed the time had come for him to leave the crusading work to his sons, and that he was returning to Terra to undertake a still higher calling.
The Great Triumph,
nodded Ferrus sadly.
I was on a campaign in the Kilar Nebula, and too far distant to attend personally. It is the one regret I have, not being able to say my farewells to our father.
I was there,
said Fulgrim, his voice choked with emotion.
I stood on the dais next to Horus and Dorn when the Emperor told us he was leaving. And it was the second most heartbreaking moment of my life.
Second
we begged him to stay, to see out what he had begun, but he turned his back on us.
Wow.
He would not even say what his great work was. Only that were he not to return to Terra, then all that we had won would crumble and fall into ruins.
Ferrus Manus looked up at him.
I'm just saying, the way he described that, it definitely seems like Fulgrim is fucking overreacting like a motherfucker here. Like, yeah, like he just told you if I don't return, everything's gonna like commit to ruins. Like, I need to return, you know? It doesn't really sound like there was much of an option in that. And yet there it was, you know? Holy shit, like, Fulgrim, calm down, you know what I mean? It's not that deep, you know? I don't think he was personally insulting you there when he said I wanted a vacation, you know? Jesus Christ. Fulgrim is a crybaby? Yeah, it seems like it. Holy shit.
And fall into ruins.
Ferrus Manus looked up at him, his eyes narrowed.
You talk as if he abandoned us.
That was how it felt,
said Fulgrim, his tone bitter.
How it still feels.
You said yourself that our father was returning to Terra, to preserve all that we had fought and bled for. Do you really think he would not have wanted to see the final victory of the crusade?
I don't know,
said Fulgrim angrily.
He could have stayed. What difference would a few years make? What could be so important that he had to leave us there and then?
Ferrus took a step towards him, and Fulgrim saw the reflection of his hurt anger in the mirrored eyes of his brother. The betrayal of everything he and the Emperor's children had fought for over the last 200 years.
I do not understand what you imply, Fulgrim,
said Ferrus, his words trailing off as the import of Fulgrim's earlier words came to him.
What did you mean when you said it was the second most heartbreaking moment of your life? What could be greater than that?
Yeah, what was the first?
Fulgrim took a deep breath, knowing that he would have to come flat out and say what he had come to say.
What could be greater than that? When Horus told me the truth of how the Emperor had betrayed us and planned to cast us aside in his quest for godhood,
said Fulgrim, relishing the horrified expression of surprise and fury on his brother's face.
Fulgrim!
Shouted Ferrus.
What in terror is wrong with you? Betrayed us? Godhood!
Fulgrim took quick steps to stand before Ferrus Manus, his voice passionate now that he had taken the final step and confessed his true reasons for coming here.
Horus has seen the truth of things, my brother. The Emperor has already abandoned us, and even now plots his apotheosis. He lied to us all, Ferrus. We were nothing more than tools to win back the galaxy in preparation for his ascension. The perfect being he pretended to be was a filthy lie.
Ferrus pushed him off and backed away, his ruddy, craggy features pale and horrified. Knowing he had to press on, Fulgrim said,
Others have already seen the truth of this and are moving to join Horus. We will strike before the Emperor is even aware that his designs have been unmasked. Horus will reclaim the galaxy in the name of those whose blood was spent to conquer it.
Fulgrim wanted to laugh as the words spilled from him, the thrill of finally unburdening himself almost too great to stand. The breath heaved in his lungs, and he could not tell whether the thundering he could hear was the blood surging in his skull, or the hammers of faraway forges. Ferrus Manus shook his head, and Fulgrim despaired as he saw his brother's horror turning to fury.
This is the new direction of the crusade you spoke of.
Yes,
cried Fulgrim.
It will be a glorious age of perfection, my brother. What we have won is already being given away to imperfect mortals who will waste the glories we have won for them. What we have earned in blood and tears will be ours again. Can't you see that?
All I see is betrayal, Fulgrim.
That is what it is, yeah.
You are not talking about claiming back what we have won. You are talking about betraying everything we stand for.
Open rebellion.
My brother,
implored Fulgrim.
Please, you must listen to me. The Mechanicum has already pledged its support to the War Master, as have many of our brothers. War is coming. War that will engulf this galaxy in flames. When it is over, there will be no mercy for those on the wrong side.
He saw the colour flood back into his brother's face, a raw and bellicose red that he knew all too well.
Ferrus, I beg you, for the sake of our brotherhood, to join us.
Brotherhood?
Bellowed Ferrus.
Our brotherhood died when you decided to turn traitor.
Fulgrim backed away from his
Holy
brother
shit.
as he saw the murderous intent in his blazing silver eyes.
Angron is ready to strike. And Mortarion will soon be with us. You must join me, or you will be destroyed.
No,
snarled Ferrus Manus, hefting Forgebreaker to his shoulder.
It is you who will be destroyed.
Ferrus, no,
pleaded Fulgrim.
Think about this. Would I come to you like this if I did not believe that it was the right thing to do?
I don't know what's happened to you, Fulgrim, but this is treachery and there is only one fate for traitors.
Damn,
so
dude.
You are going to kill me?
Ferrus hesitated, and Fulgrim saw his shoulders sag in despair.
I am your sworn honor brother, and I swear to you that I do not lie.
Pressed Fulgrim, hoping that there was still a chance to convince his brother not to act in haste.
I know you're not lying, Fulgrim, and that's why you have to die.
Damn, dude. That was a good back and forth, I'm not gonna lie. I really actually kind of like that. I mean, Ferrus stood on business there. He wasn't, at least it didn't seem like he was swayed. He heard the words traitor, we're turning on the Emperor, and he immediately was like, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, I'll have none of that. I'll do not this, you know? Like, holy shit, you know? Definitely very commendable by Ferrus, you know? I might not back him up at all times, but that was pretty baller by him, I have to say. That was good. That was really good. I like that back and forth a lot. Manipulation is heartbreaking. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you could see that there was obvious manipulation by Fulgrim there for sure. It just didn't work though, did it? Definitely didn't work the way he wanted it to. Istvan 5.
Fulgrim had betrayed him. He had betrayed the Emperor, and there were others. Angron, Mortarion, and Horus. In his most sacred chambers, overjoyed to see his closest friend in the universe, his joy turns to ash as Fulgrim began to speak, unfolding a tale for a new direction of the Great Crusade. Horus has seen the truth of things, my brother. The Emperor has already abandoned us, and even now plots his apotheosis. He lied to us all, Ferrus. We were nothing more than tools to win back the galaxy in preparation for his ascension. Ferrus couldn't believe what he was hearing. Like each word was slowly killing the friendship he and Fulgrim had for centuries. Hearing how he spoke of their father, the pinnacle of perfection, the star that Ferrus's worldview orientated around. This new direction of the Great Crusade disgusted him. His heart began to quicken. He felt his pulse pound in his head as his rage began to rise. You are not talking about claiming back what we have won. You are talking about betraying everything we stand for. Our brotherhood died when you decided to turn traitor.
Damn,
Fulgrim pleaded with him, telling him you must join me or you will be destroyed. Ferrus did not understand what had overcome Fulgrim, but he had betrayed him and the Imperium, and the only fate for traitors
Is death.
Ferrus's body tensed as he prepared to launch himself at Fulgrim. So, are you going to kill me? The statement cut deep. Even now, Ferrus loved his brother, a bond like no other, but that was why it was so painful. To have his complete and utter trust in a person shattered. He would never trust again. Never allow himself to feel this pain again. Forgebreaker slammed into Fireblade as the two Primarchs tried to kill each other.
Yeah, wow.
Tears stung Ferrus's eyes for the first time in his existence. But the look upon Fulgrim's face was a visage of twisted delight. It disgusted him. With blows that were too fast for the human eye, two demigods battled. Ferrus's blows rippled vibrations through Fulgrim's bones, but his blade work was faster, and he made a cut for his brother's head. Fireblade once again returned to the hands that forged it, as Ferrus caught it with his bare metal hands. With his arms glowing from heat, Ferrus broke the weapon that he had forged, the explosion throwing both Primarchs off their feet.
Damn, dude.
Fulgrim, burned and his armor damaged, rose first. He stood over Ferrus as both of their senses began to return. With tears still stinging his dull silver eyes, Ferrus looked to the now stranger above him, declaring that Fulgrim had best kill him, for he will kill him if he does not. Fulgrim once again pleaded with Ferrus, but his words fell on deaf ears. The Gorgon of Medusa would never betray the Emperor, never forsake the oaths he had given. Fulgrim whispered to himself that I will always be your brother.
I respect
and
that a
then
lot.
he struck Ferrus in the jaw with Forgebreaker, leaving him unconscious. Ferrus awoke hours later, finding his honor guard outside slain, and the Iron Hands fleet heavily damaged. Once again, the galaxy had changed. Civil war had erupted. 4 legions under the banner of Horus had risen up in rebellion. Many worlds declared for the War Master. Xenos attacks escalated, and warp storms began to ravage the galaxy. It was all chaotic. Everything in flux. In his innermost sanctums, Ferrus spent weeks on the Forge, his place of comfort. They say the emotions of all craftsmen find its way into their pieces, and so Ferrus began to reforge Fireblade, the one he had created in the Urals, 2 centuries before. Once filled with love and admiration, it was now filled with vengeance and hate. His silver hands sculpted and forged as his mind drifted. Fulgrim had betrayed him. Had he let him live because of love or pity? Why did he believe that Ferrus could turn? What did he see within him that was weak? Would his brothers question that too? Would the Imperium look to him and question his loyalty? He had to face him. He needed to purge these weaknesses from himself. The weakness of being perceived as a traitor, of letting friendship cloud him.
I'm going to be very interested to see this reforged Fireblade that he's remaking here. This seemed like a pretty sick blade, and the fact that it broke was very sad. 2-century-old blade broken, but the fact that he's reforging it here, it would be cool to see, what he turns that into eventually. No spoilers, of course, but I'm looking forward to that. Awesome, made it back from the crash to catch some more of the stream. Love some Warhammer lore? Yeah, man, for sure. Yeah, we still got, I guess, like almost an hour left here. I might have to pause here in a little bit. I might have to go take a bathroom break, maybe a little bit of smoke break partway through here in a little bit. So let's keep going for a few minutes here, and we'll see how I'm feeling. But we might have to take a little break here in a bit.
Of being perceived as a traitor, of letting friendship cloud him. Once again, defeat had taught him a lesson. Finally, through the warp storms, news came from Terra. 7 legions were directed to crush this rebellion at its heart. Upon the world of Istvan V. It had come to this. 2 centuries of the Great Crusade. Hundreds of thousands of worlds brought into Imperial compliance. Billions upon billions under the light of the Emperor. And like all empires, when it reached the sea, it turned upon itself. Ferrus sat across from his brothers, Corvus Corax of the Raven Guard, and Vulcan of the Salamanders. His enthusiasm was infectious. He was hungry for traitor's blood. Ferrus had made up his mind, and once he had, there was no stopping him. Ferrus Manus, followed by the unified clans of the Iron Hands, roared down towards the cold and bitter surface upon Istvan V. The loyalists crashed into the fortified positions of the traitors, beginning the bloodiest battle in the Imperium's history. The skies were lit in permanent orange. Smog and ash choked the atmosphere, as hundreds of thousands of superhuman warriors fought like animals, each side screaming cries of hate. The mortal contingents on both sides would become mad, through the sheer cacophony of violence, the sight stomach-turning, ear-ringing, pulse roaring. Ferrus and his elite Morlocks charged the centre, Astartes falling in their dozens to the demigod with silver hands. Thousands were dying every minute, but Ferrus and the Iron Hands pushed forward. The flesh was weak, but the brutal charge of a legion of Ferrus's sons was not. Finally breaking through, Ferrus and his sons caught sight of the 3rd Legion, and what they saw disgusted them. Their armor, their features had been corrupted.
Damn,
Horrifying
has already
displays
happened.
of sickly color, extreme body modification, and flayed skin draped over them. For hours,
That would be
Ferrus and
fucking
his
jarring,
sons
that's for
fought.
sure.
Skulls were crushed in his iron grip. It was like discarding necrotized flesh. They were cutting the weakness out of the Imperium. With a mountain of traitor and loyalist corpses around him, Ferrus looked to the sky. Reinforcements. The Alpha Legion, Night Lords,
Oh, God.
Iron Warriors and Word Bearers had arrived.
Yeah, guys,
The
reinforcements.
traitor's line began to
Woo!
break.
Yeah.
His brothers Corax and Vulcan
They're
called
here to help.
retreat,
Yeah.
to hand over the next assault to their brothers.
Hey, what are you guys
But
doing?
then he saw him. Fulgrim. He had to face him. No word seemed to reach Ferrus. No reason or logic factored into his mind. Just the rage of one who had been betrayed. Surrounded by the last of his remaining Morlocks of Clan Everni, Ferrus charged, leaving behind most of his legion. He scaled the hill before him, and once again his eyes met the brother. he had once called a true friend. The sight of Fulgrim was heartbreaking and unnerving. He wore the smile of a killer. You betrayed the Emperor, and you betrayed me. The last words racked with emotion that he couldn't mask. Pain he hated himself for feeling. The flesh was weak. Again, Fulgrim tried to convince his brother to join them. The Emperor was a spent force, and there was a new order in the galaxy. Ferrus couldn't believe what he was hearing, even now, when Horus was on the verge of defeat. But Fulgrim smiled, and as Ferrus turned around, horror ravaged his face. The second wave, the reinforcements, turned upon the Iron Hands, Raven Guard, and Salamanders. Ferrus's...
I can't believe these reinforcements led by the fucking Alpha Legion would turn on us, guys. That's so insane. Why? Man. Who could have seen this one coming? Honestly, who could have seen it coming?
The Iron Hands, Raven Guard, and Salamanders. Ferrus's sons began to fall, carved up and butchered as a second treachery took place. For the first time in his life, Ferrus felt true despair as everything he had built died in front of his eyes. Hate. A rage so complete washed over him. He was the Gorgon of Medusa, the stubborn, brutal warrior king. But now he was a beast. He drew the reforged fire blade, and the two brothers launched themselves at each other.
Damn, so
They
he
hacked
reforged it
and
himself?
stabbed as the Imperium
For
burned
himself?
around them. Ferrus felt the bone-shattering strikes as he sliced Fulgrim with his blade. They moved at a speed beyond mortal perception until they broke apart. Ferrus's wounds were pouring. Never had he been pushed like this before. But this time there was no thrill, only emotional and physical pain. He began to overwhelm Fulgrim, ready to kill him, until Fulgrim drew his own blade. An alien, silver gleaming, and sickly purple light radiating from the hilt. Diabolical strength caught Ferrus by surprise.
Diabolical
He was
strength.
thrown back, and his chest was gorged open.
Jesus.
Ferrus fell to his knees in pain. Clambering for Fire Blade, he looked up one last time, seeing hesitation in Fulgrim. His fingers gripped the hilt of his blade, but the silver edge swung down. Fulgrim cleaved Ferrus's head from his shoulders.
Jesus.
Blood poured from the remaining stump as the limp body of the Gorgon of Medusa slumped to the floor.
Crazy how Fulgrim fucking bested Ferrus here. Holy shit. Beheaded
These are
him.
not my hands.
Beheaded him, and you know what? There's still an hour left. That's kind of crazy. Beheaded him now, there's still an hour left of this episode. Holy shit. Jesus Christ. What's it gonna be? Shit. Oh, I wonder what we're gonna see here the rest of this time.
These are not my hands. This fact is forgotten by my brothers. Inexplicably, it has always seemed to me. The hands are strong, to be sure, and have created
Unless
great
he isn't
things
dead,
for us
but
all.
that sounded pretty dead to
But they are
me.
not mine, and that counts for something. They forget that the silver on my arms comes from a beast that I vanquished. It is the mark of a great evil that I ended, and yet it persists within me. I would struggle to remove it now, and I will not remove the silver from my flesh, because I have learned to depend on it. The fault is with my mind. I rely on the augmentation given to me by the metal gauntlets, so much so that the flesh beneath them is now little more than a distant memory. A day will come when I will strip it from me, lest I lose the power to master myself forever. Already my legion's warriors replace their shield hands with metal in my honor, and so they too are learning to doubt the natural strength of their bodies. They must be weaned off this practice before it becomes a mania for them. Hatred of what is natural, of what is human, is the first and greatest of the corruptions. So I
Damn.
record it here. When the time comes, I will strip my hands of their unnatural silver. I will instruct my legion to recant their distrust of the flesh, I will turn them away with the gifts of the machine, and bid them relearn the mysteries of the flesh, bone, and blood. When my father's crusade is over, this shall be my sacred task. When the fighting is done, I shall cure my legion and myself, for fighting is all there is. If we may never pause to reflect on what such devotion to strength is doing to us, then our compulsion will only grow.
Damn, that went pretty hard.
I'll do it.
He said, handing the slate back.
It'll be quicker.
The man slowly offered him the bloody saw, but Shadrach had already leaned over the side of the recliner and drawn his gladius. He set the edge of the blade along the clumsy guide cut that the bone saw had scored, paused, and then struck his ruined hand off with a single swift blow. It bounced off the side of the trolley and landed in the pool of blood on the deck. The serf hesitated, as though he felt it would be polite to pick up the severed hand and return it to Shadrach. Then he remembered himself, dropped the saw, and hurried forward to attend with clamps and wadding.
If it's going to hurt anyway,
said Shadrach, as the man worked, binding the stump tightly.
It's better that it doesn't linger too.
Good advice, he thought, applies to so damned much. Gorgonson returned an hour later.
That's true.
And inspected the wound.
Do this yourself. It seemed for the best.
Shadrach replied.
You're no surgeon,
said Gorgonson.
Never claimed to be. But your man there was intent on whittling me down until I was nothing but a spinal column and a rictus.
Gorgonson frowned.
We're doing the best we can, given the circumstances. Well, he made more of a mess of me in 10 minutes than the damn Sons of Horus could manage in a week.
Gorgonson glared at him.
Don't even joke.
Damn,
you,
dude.
Shadrach. Don't even say the words aloud. You don't think I'm angry? I'm beyond rage. I'm in another place entirely. White heat and boiling blood. I'm going to butcher and burn every one of the bastards. Give me my new hand so I can get on with it.
Gorgonson hesitated. They had known each other for 24 decades. Like
24
Shadrach,
decades is insane.
Gorgonson had been a stormwalker.
240 years, and they were stormwalkers beforehand. These are some OG Iron Hands here, like cracking jokes at each other here, and that have been betrayed. I assume this would be like the ultimate betrayal. I mean, it was the ultimate betrayal, but like, especially for the Iron Hands with how close they are with Fulgrim's Legion, with the Emperor's Children. You know, I could see this being like this would really shake your fucking perception up, you know? You wouldn't think the closest cousin Legion that you have would just turn coat like they did, you know what I mean? And suddenly now, the next week, you're literally fighting them, like on mass scale. It happens so quickly, and I don't think they ever imagined it going like that.
Like Shadrach, Gorgonson had been a stormwalker, a son of terror. They had fought through the unification wars side by side. At their ascendancy, Goran had elected to join Locopt, the clan that most remembered and celebrated the Terran aspect of the founding. But he had changed his name to Gorgonson, in honor of the Primarch.
Anger's not going to get us anywhere, Earth Brother,
Shadrach said quietly.
Except deader than we are already. Anger's a blindfold, a fool's motivation. I reserve it only for killing blows. We need cool heads and clear minds. This is survival, repair, rebuilding. Terra only knows we're good at repair. We excel at it. So this should play to our strengths. They're calling a council. Who's they? The Clan Fathers. A clan council? Well, what in Terra's name for? This isn't a matter of bloodline and heritage. The Clan Fathers are proposing to assume command. The Clan Fathers are proposing to assume command. Collective command. I suppose so. In the absence of...
Gorgonson paused. There were words that were going to be hard to say. Names that were going to be hard to utter.
The Clan Fathers take control for now. Isn't there comfort and assurance in that? They are veterans who understand. A clan council is the last thing we need,
said Shadrach.
Command by committee. Pointless. We need positive, singular leadership.
I didn't know you had aspirations of command.
I'm just saying I agree with that. You can't have a committee at this point. A committee is a joke. You cannot have indecision amongst the leadership ranks at this point. Your Primarch is fucking dead. You need a decisive leader to take you into the next phase of what the fuck are we going to do here. You cannot have any back talking, right? You're kind of all in it or not in it at all at this point, I think. And I think that's just how it needs to be. I'd agree with him there. And that's not to say he necessarily wants to take command. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know, right? But speaking on that behalf, you definitely want a singular leadership in this regard, not a council. That's not going to be successful, I don't think, here.
Singular leadership.
I didn't know you had aspirations of command,
Gorgonson remarked. Shadrach thought about that for a moment. The notion came as a surprise.
I don't. I've never considered it. I just know we need something now. Someone. We're dead without it. Just a shattered rabble.
Gorgonson sighed.
Any apothecary, even the best of us, will tell you that you can graft on a new hand, but you can't graft on a new head.
Then we'll have to learn how,
said Shadrach. A servitor besides Gorgonson was holding the augmetic on a tray.
Nothing fancy,
said the apothecary, reaching for a scraper and neurofuser.
I have no juvenate packing left either, so you'll have to let it bond by itself. Don't test it, it'll be weak. For months, probably. Let it bed in and heal.
Shadrach nodded.
Just fix me up. I'm sure I'll have many weeks of calm and leisure to get the healing done.
Gorgonson started working.
Is he dead?
Yes.
You know this.
Amadeus told me. It was confirmed from the surface.
Lord Commander Amadeus is dead too,
murmured the apothecary.
Yes, I saw it. But his word lives. The Gorgon is dead, and our stepfather Amadeus is gone too. So we can lie down and die with them, or we can learn the graft heads.
What are you playing?
That's difficult, yeah. Like, all their veteran leadership is basically fucking gone at this point now. Like, that is difficult for them. I could see the Legion, the state of the Iron Hands being right now. I would describe it as utterly depressed, you know, for lack of a better word. It doesn't seem like their way, but like, it's just a case of like, fuck, we're in it. Like, there's an open rebellion. Our leadership is dead. We currently have councils going to determine the next in line, but it's not looking great. You know, and then where's our plan from here? How do we assist in the war effort? Where do we go? Right? It's a difficult spot for them. Similar situation for the Salamanders. That's true too. Vulcan, I guess, at this point is also gone too. Yeah. Iron Hands lost like 99% of their warriors. Yeah, there's like that seems brutal. I think they were basically all planet side when that went down. Lost their veteran leadership, lost most of their troop. I don't know how the ones that got out. I think probably largely it's a lot of their fleet elements are still surviving, and they probably got maybe a couple dropships out in time, but that's about it. You know, I really don't see it as much more than that. I will say though, guys, I am gonna pause here. We're probably gonna take like a little 5-10 minute break here. I'm going to go use the restroom, maybe grab another coffee, and maybe smoke real quick again. So we're gonna take a little 5-10 minute here. Go grab yourself a snack, go grab yourself a drink, do whatever you want. And we will return in about 5-10, guys. Also, if you guys aren't liked up, please hit that like button. It does help out a ton, guys. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you're not subscribed. Yeah, we'll be back in about 5-10 minutes. Spread the word, and yeah, I'll see you guys in a few. Be right back, guys. All right, sorry about that, guys. We are back. Sorry for the delay there. We are bathroomed up. We are smoked up. We are coffeeed up again. We are good to go. Not sponsored by Tim Hortons. It's just the cup I use because it was a $3.50 cup. I couldn't say no. It's a nice cup. You know, Tim Hortons, if you want to hit me up, I'd be more than happy. But unfortunately, that's not the case. We're back with some more Ferrus Manus. We're going to be picking up where we left off. Ferrus is fucking dead. Man got beheaded. He's gone. Our boy's gone. He's dead. You know what? I will say, as of right now, and I think maybe I can make this assumption. Yeah, I actually, I don't want to speak too soon. I don't know the full story. I don't know if he's going to be speaking again. I don't know if he's going to be interacting with anyone again. Maybe some warp fuckery is, at play here. Who knows, right? I don't want to speak too soon, but I was going to make that assumption on Perturabo versus Ferrus in terms of their sociability there. But we're going to hold off until the end there for sure. Yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna answer that question, but is he, I don't know if he's gone. You know what I mean? I'm not certain yet. If he is, then yes, but we'll see. I don't want to speak too soon. We'll answer at the end. I don't want to speak too soon. But yes, thank you guys for sticking it out there. Appreciate you guys. Good conversation we had there. Fucking Supreme Leader Andrew, gonna be in control soon, I'm sure. Yeah, let's get right back into it, guys. Where we picked off there. Shit's fucked. The Legion's in disarray. They don't know what they're doing. Let's see what happens.
Or we can learn to graft heads.
Not
What
learning
are
how to
you
graft
playing
heads.
at?
Org asked. Shadrach could feel the Iron Father's anger radiating out like a force field. They stood on the caustic shoreline of the Sulphur Lake. Acid vapor swirled like battlefield smoke.
What? We bite our lips now? Even now, in this predicament?
Sorgel has no clan father here. You shame us in the company of...
I shame you.
Shadrach shook his head.
Is that really what matters now?
Shame.
The shame of speaking out. Fates above, we are shamed enough. The clan leaders are groping around, trying to recover something we have lost forever. By the time they reach a decision, we will be discovered and slaughtered.
Damn,
or,
dude.
if they reach a decision, it will be the wrong one, and we will be slaughtered anyway.
We need unification, Shadrach.
Said Org.
For morale alone.
I agree, but under one war leader, with one purpose.
Yes.
One leader.
Org laughed bitterly.
Who?
You, perhaps.
Org spat and looked away.
No one.
Like, you could reasonably, and I'm just putting it out there, they could have even an election for their company leaders right now, whoever's left, right? Have an election for your leadership as it stands. Let the Night's Watch from fucking Game of Thrones. Basically do it like the Night's Watch from Game of Thrones for this instance alone, just because of how fucked up shit is. But you do need one leader. You cannot have multiple leaders, especially at this time. You cannot have various factions within your legion with your numbers. You need to be effective. You need to be concise. You need to know what you're doing. You need to put yourself on the right path forward. When you have multiple leaders, it's just going to be the case of this legion is going to be dragged in multiple directions, and neither direction is going to be effective. You know what I mean? Because it's not going to be committed to the fullest, right? Even if it's a fucked up objective under one person, at least they're committing to something fully versus like half-assing it. Does that make sense in a way? That's just my hot take on it, let's say.
You, perhaps.
Org spat and looked away.
No one wants it. None of us. Not a single captain. Not a single Iron Father. That's why the Clan Fathers have taken the lead. They are projecting a sense of security, of unity through our blood heritage. A reassurance in this time of loss through the bonds of fraternity. But it's a group decision, so that no one shoulders a burden alone. No one bloody wants it. That's why no one has stepped forward and called the rally around him.
Yes.
He looked at Org.
No one wants to be seen as trying to replace the Gorgon. No one wants to replace Amadeus Duquesne. No one wants to be seen as impertinent or disrespectful. I understand it.
Like, yeah.
He paused.
But we need to raise the storm again. No one wants to command. No one wants to appear so arrogant as to imagine that he can assume the Primarch's role.
Yes.
But it's not a matter of want, or pride, or vainglorious ambition. It's a matter of necessity.
This talk will get you killed, Terran-born.
Said Org.
No!
Shadrach snapped, pointing towards the monastery.
That talk will get us killed.
He lowered his hand.
He's right. Like, again, that sums it up, right? Like, it's not a matter of disrespect. It's not like, hey, I'm trying to replace Ferrus. It's not like I'm trying to replace Amadeus. Like, listen, shit's just fucked. We need leadership. Like, we have not, like, we're out here and we're here. You know what I mean? As it stands, we have no objective. We have no assigned goal. You know what I mean? The rebellion is still largely at play here. We just lost a lot of our number. Like, what was it? Something insane, like 95, 99%, something like that. To that number, to that degree, they lost most of their people, or most of their Astartes. Like, I don't know, man. It's just, yeah, like what is it called? Medusa, the Medusa born here, Astartes, they're absolutely kind of fucking the dog here. I understand they want to keep their cultural heritage at play here, especially given the circumstances, especially given how soon their leadership has been killed. But yeah, the Terranborn has the right idea here, let's call it, you know, and that's a more traditional, like, military, like, drill style. Makes more sense. It just straight up does. In such a destroyed state, why not take up guerrilla warfare? Lots of small groups operating on their own to sow mayhem behind the enemy lines. I think because that way, if you do that, now there is merit to that idea, but I think the problem is that if you do that, you're opening the door for manipulation amongst those smaller groups. You're opening the door for perhaps like, again, it's the problem of non-committance. Because your number is already so small, it's like, what effect are you really going to have on the traitorous forces right now? You kind of need to assign yourselves to another legion, in a sense. You kind of need to operate within the bounds of as a supporting element. You know what I'm saying? You can't be acting with your limited numbers haphazardly. Like, I think guerrilla fighting is good and all, but I think it's also very, very risky, right? Guerrilla fighting works when you have a lot of people to maintain that guerrilla fighting force. But if you guerrilla fight and you die and there's only 10 people left to replace you, like, you're irreparable, you know, or irreparable, you're irreplaceable, you know what I'm saying? It's not the case of, like, you know, we're out teched or something like that. It's like they have equivalent force. I think guerrilla fighting these people is going to be really, really hard, you know, and especially it depends how you guerrilla fight them in this context. If you're talking about, you know, I could maybe see if you have the right vessels guerrilla fighting in space, but I mean, they're outmatched in every regard, especially when you're fighting like corrupted AdMech and shit like that. I don't see it. You know what I mean? You need to really join up and help out your allies, you know, in this case. That's really all you can do. Or you need to set your path straight. You need to have an assigned goal. You know, if you operate as like a surgical force in this degree, you could do really, really well as well, but that's not going to work if you have multiple leadership dragging the Legion in multiple directions, or what's left of the Legion in multiple directions. I'm assuming it's basically chapter strength at this point. Would that be wrong to assume? If it's essentially chapter strength, then these guys are kind of the first to like come to that problem and have to face it in a way. Return to Terra to reinforce the Imperium. I agree with that. I think that would be smart. I think that would be right away smart, to be honest with you. But it depends. It really depends on what the proclivities are here. You know, like what the not proclivities, what the intentions are here, I guess, amongst the clan members, right? And then if they decide to elect a leader, what that specific leader's intentions are at that point, right? The Raven Guard are perfect for the guerrilla fighting. They just need to reassign themselves. Yeah, the Raven Guard at this point are really disorganized because they also got slapped hard, you know, during Istvan. That's the problem. They're kind of in the same state that that these guys are in, except their Primarch is still currently alive, right? Which is a major up versus the Iron Hand.
Talk will get us killed.
He lowered his hand. The augmetic graft had not fully healed, and still ached abysmally. The violence of the gesture had jarred it.
I have it on good medical authority that you can't graft on a new head,
he said. Jebez Org uttered a dry laugh. He shifted his flesh-spare frame and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand.
You don't need to be a medical authority to know that,
he replied.
I'm not suggesting that anyone pretends to be the Gorgon. I'm not proposing that anyone presumes he can command as well as Ferrus Manus, or attempt to be such a master. I'm simply talking about focus of authority. One mind, one will, one iron drive, strong enough to compel us long enough to...
To what?
Do what needs to be done.
Exactly.
Which is what? Survive?
No.
Shadrach looked out over the misted lake. He turns to the Iron Father.
You can't graft on a new head, but you can cut off an existing one. We need to focus long enough to get to Horus, to cut off his head. We decapitate the traitors. We do to them what they did to us. We shatter them and scatter them to the winds. We end this treachery.
After a moment, he added,
Then we can die, for all I care.
I think that's not a bad goal. Again, acting as a surgical strike force, they're turning into more of like an assassin role in this sense, right? Okay, our limited numbers, right, allows us the advantage of surprise in a sense. Maybe the advantage of lure, unsuspecting. If we can pinpoint where Horus is going to be, we can kind of set a trap for him. We can try to take off the head of the snake, as it were. Then yeah, that's a good goal. It's a better goal than let's have 12 goals. You know what I mean? It's one concise thing that they can focus on is better than multiple potential leaderships at play. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't commit to one thing fully right now against a larger force, you're going to get fucked up. You know what I mean? That's what it is, right? Like, I think that's I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong in that assumption here, but I think that's true. I think that's true. Like, you see that a lot, like nowadays and shit too. Not nowadays, but historically in the past, right? So, damn, dude. BC's right on numbers. Salamander's around 2K after Istvan. Iron Hands are about 5,000. 5,000s, yeah, okay. So they're bigger than a chapter right now, but they got slapped pretty hard. Damn, dude.
He added,
Then we can die, for all I care.
Shattered legions. There's a few of them.
We have learned what it means to be shattered, and the path we must follow to achieve our vengeance. We must learn to pace ourselves, tactical restraint. We must learn the tactics and techniques of those thrown in with us, and respect them. We must take our iron and alloy it with the strength of those shattered alongside us.
He was dead. Ferrus Manus, son of the Emperor, the Gorgon of Medusa. His headless corpse was picked apart by the Emperor's children, like wolves to a carcass, each clambering for trophies. His head was tossed by Fulcrum at the feet of War Master Horus. Those dull silver eyes had been plucked clean, the sockets raw and bloody. The flesh was grey and dead. His jaw hung open, and bone projected from one side where it had been caved in. The victory cries of the traitors rung out like a carrion call across the Imperium, declaring death to the false emperor.
They did him really fucking dirty.
Burn. The Iron Hands Legion had been,
like, usually in 40k, right? From what we've seen other Primarchs get it, right, or other hero characters get it, and it's gruesome. But like, this describes, like, like this is, this one's pretty gruesome. They picked his corpse apart. You know what I mean? They literally fucking stripped him up. And that's kind of how it, like, in a sense, it would be, right? And again, historically speaking, to how it was, right? So it's cool that they went into detail about that. Yeah, they took him out. They did him dirty. Wow.
and to let the galaxy burn. The Iron Hands Legion had been decimated. Ferrus was dead. First Captain Gabriel Santar.
This illustration's also
dead.
crazy.
Lord Commander Amadeus Duquesne was gone. All semblance of unity fractured, and the desperate remaining few attempted to flee the massacre and fleet blockade. The Iron Hands, Salamanders and Raven Guard had been shattered. 2 Primarchs were missing, but the Lord of the 10th unmistakably slain. The survivors of the Isfahan 5 massacre were barely in the thousands, all of them wounded and damaged physically. Scattered ships held collections of Iron Hands, Raven Guard and Salamanders, all from different clans and companies. all disorganized. The Iron Hands had lost nearly everything. But worst of all, something had broken within themselves. Ferrus was dead. Their Primarch, their father, the star in which their existence orbited around. The Primarch who had united Medusa and had taken them to the stars. They couldn't process it. They couldn't reconcile that their gene-sire had been lost, that he had been weak. He had let his anger and need to prove himself override his tactical sense. He had left them behind to chase his vendetta and lost. Ferrus had let his human emotions get the better of him. Their flesh was weak. And they had been weak too. They had failed to push through, failed to save their lord, because they were weak. Horus had shattered them because they were weak. They hated them, the traitors who paraded the corpse of their fallen brothers and Primarch across the Imperium. The anger was so complete, it had come back round into calm. And yet they saw that anger still as the same weakness that had got their Primarch killed. Their
It's also a cool illustration.
was justified, but was simply a symptom of something wrong within themselves.
The battle
Many
scene
of the
there.
survivors across the burning Imperium began to meet in secret, conclaves in the dark like vermin, hiding from the light. Leadership had been taken by the Iron Fathers, a return to the Medusan way of life before the Primarch. It was the safe choice, one of fairness, but endless debate and subservient to tradition and indecision.
Yeah.
No one wanted it. The
Gets you fucking nowhere.
responsibility, the arrogance to claim that they could unite the Iron Hands that the Gorgon had. Captain Shadrach Medusan, the Terran-born veteran, couldn't stand it. The loss of his legion, his Primarch, and now the indecision of the Iron Fathers. Hoping to retreat into the remnants of their clan structure was useless. Why divide their strength now?
Literally.
A part of them couldn't blame them. They were simply seeking to find a source of purpose, of comfortable strength to fill the void within themselves. But talk like this would destroy them all. From so
I feel like that's exactly what I was saying, like verbatim almost. Like straight up. Like you can't be indecisive where it's just gonna get you fucking nowhere and you're all gonna get killed. Like that's basically it. Like you need to have one united purpose, one united goal, especially considering your numbers. If you're fighting a greater superior enemy, it doesn't afford anyone any good to have multiple ideas at play that could potentially bring low the entire agenda at, the entire cause as it stands, right? And that's not to say don't have advisors or don't have structured informants, that type of thing, right? But you do need one decision ultimately at the end of the day. You can't have fucking 12. It's not gonna work. You know what I mean? It isn't gonna work.
within themselves, but talk like this would destroy them all. From such black and white views of right and wrong, you become unreceptive to the wisdom of others. They needed to raise the storm. Their Raven Guard and Salamander brothers had their own tactics of war, their own strengths. They were iron, but we must take our iron and alloy it with the strength of those shattered alongside us. They needed to become steel, strong but flexible. The Gorgon is dead, and our stepfather Amadeus is gone too, so we can lie down and die with them, or we can learn to graft heads. It was a difficult ask to the stubborn sons of Medusa, fiercely independent, even as a legion of Astartes in the stars. To ask them to declare that the tactics their Primarch had taught them was not good enough was a tough pill to swallow. The Iron Hand survivors scattered, finding that their very own.
And I want to say too, to that point, earlier I did say him bringing in that initial tribal element of their clans, the competitiveness against each other. I did mention back when, you know, it mentioned that was happening. I was like, this is a bad idea. It's not going to lead them to anything good later on. And I guess like now that he's dead, you know, Ferrus is dead, this is where it starts to show like that competitiveness within your legion, that tribal element of command in a sense. It just, it doesn't serve anyone any well. Like that's all it is. You know, lead your legion how you want to, but like it doesn't future-proof you once you're gone, you know? It doesn't future-proof what happens after you're gone.
To swallow. The Iron Hand survivors scattered, finding that their very own 10th Legion cipher language had been turned against them. They fell into ambushes, another betrayal by the Emperor's children.
Really?
Their stubbornness again had cost them. Until finally many saw the need for a singular focus, one being at the top, Captain Shadrach Medusan. Alloying with the hit and run stealth of the Raven Guard, with the enduring will and close range firepower of the Salamanders, the Shattered Legion survivors began to reform themselves. Not 10th, 18th or 19th Legion, but Astartes. Divided into cells, the Shattered Legions began to harass the traitor supply lines. Ruthless fleet engagement and boarding actions became second nature to them. In the cold, claustrophobic ceramite corridors of Astartes vessels, Iron Hands clashed against Sons of Horus, Emperor's Children, and Alpha Legion.
I could see merit in that. Again, if they're going to commit to a goal and guerrilla fighting is what they want to do, they can do it. I was arguing the validity in the sense of like how they're going to do it. If you're smart with it, it can be done. You know what I mean? It's just you got to be really fucking careful because you do not have reinforcements. The second you start taking on casualties, like with their numbers, they're not getting it back, and you're fighting a far, far superior force. That's the problem with it, right? But it does have its advantages, right? If you are in there, now I don't know if they're gonna surgically go for Horus here. I'm assuming they might still. But if they're just committing like harassing actions upon the enemy fleets in the rear, you know, logistical attacks and that type of thing, yeah, that could serve really, really well, and that could serve the war effort very good, I think. You know, again, they can't fight if they don't have munitions, so if you can fully like stop their flow of munitions to the invading worlds, or even food, whatever have you, basic supplies, really. Yeah, you can choke out the invading force, that's for sure. Even in space, especially in space, you know.
Hands clashed against Sons of Horus, Emperor's Children, and Alpha Legion, finding an outlet to unleash their hate and fury, finding it difficult to stop. Once the slaughter
at least they're buying time. Yeah, that's just it.
We need to focus long enough.
I will say, yeah, they're buying time, and if any of the traitor legions at this point try to divert time to go after them, then they're buying even more time, right? Like, there is merit in what they're doing. Like, it's basically harass the enemy enough so that they eventually have to chase you, and then once they chase you, then it's like, just fucking run away. You know, why fight them? There's no reason to fight, just run away. You're doing your job. You're just simply prolonging the fight, you know? That's it. You're prolonging the fight. You're allowing for the defending worlds to build up their defending elements. You're allowing for fights to be won as a whole, right? Because again, all the traders have at this point is speed, and the element of surprise. Now that that's gone, they're rushing to fucking Terra. We know that, right? They rush to Terra as quick as they can. So yeah, if you can just like prolong that as much as you can, or stop their flow of reinforcements, supplies, troops, you know, halt them as best you can from reorganizing. That's the best you can really do. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Also, I have to say this illustration looks sick, and I love the armor here as well.
Once the slaughter had begun, we need to focus long enough to get Horus to cut off his head.
Right.
We decapitate the traitors.
There it is. So they're still going for Horus.
What they did to us.
Yeah.
We shatter them and scatter them to the winds. We end this treachery. Then we can die for all I care. The Horus heresy began to rage throughout the Imperium. Years of brutal warfare seemed to touch every system, all forced to choose between the Emperor or Horus. But what had become clear to the Shattered Legions was that there was something more to this war. They had seen up close the new, disgusting visages of their once brother Legion, the Emperor's children. But after each engagement, they saw the traitor legions become more and more twisted. The warp storm that ravaged the galaxy were easily traversed by the forces loyal to Horus. Chaos, foul corruption that stemmed from the warp. 4 dark entities that called themselves gods had infected the War Master and his forces. Whispers and rumors of grand sacrifices and barbaric rituals were rife across the Imperium. Millions were dying. All the more reason to despise them, even as the thought of these so-called gods and the truth about the warp conflicted with the Imperial truth. It was simply another situation in which they had to adapt. The Iron Hands were not whole, but many had been renewed by the purpose of methodical vengeance. But not all fell into the weakness of human emotion. During the Great Crusade, slowly the Iron Hands had become their namesake, as augmetics replaced the weak flesh, damaged or scarred in battle. Ferrus did not approve of this, but kept his thoughts to himself, as one who relied on his own silver hands.
True.
With the death of the Primarch and the Legion shattered, there were some who could not bear the weakness that was their humanity. Their anger, their hate, their sorrow, their overwhelming sense of shame and failure that haunted them in the moments of silence. It needed to be locked away. They didn't want to be like their Primarch. Some even went as far as to condemn the Gorgon of Medusa, a man who never truly understood the Medusan ways, an outsider. Others sacrificed the last piece of weakness within themselves.
That's pretty heinous,
The
I have to
keys
say.
of hell. Technology discovered during the Great Crusade that had been considered heretical by Ferrus Manus and the Mechanicum of Mars. The foundation of faith in the Mechanicum had become the form of the 10th Legion, the holy union between man and machine. But for the bitter survivors who only saw the path of the machine and iron as a way to escape the weakness of their humanity, they turned the keys of hell. Castigan Ulok and his brothers became revenants, a consciousness forever locked inside. As the cybernetics took control, they became parodies of men, machines purged of emotion, engines of war, left with only cold logic. Never able to fall down the path of the Primarch who had let his anger be the death of him. The flesh is weak. The sight of these Gola disgusted their surviving brothers, but open war amongst themselves couldn't be risked when there were so few of them left. The shattered legions were the broken remnants that numbered in the few thousand. Their deaths would only be spent on one objective: Horus Lupercal.
So they definitely did some fuckery there, and they lost all of their humanity. That's pretty insane. And yeah, like, what are you going to do about it, right? It's not like they can start killing each other about it right now. They can't afford to do that. It's just another thing that's, I think, further going to set to perhaps divide them in the future, you know? You're going to start to see different, like, sects evolve, like, against this, for this, whatever have you. Yeah, let's see where it goes, I guess. Pretty radical shit, man.
I am not used to repeating myself, Primaris Tech Officer Vackle. This frigate is now under the auspices of the Iron Hands. It is currently interfering with my mission and will move aside. I demand to see the Lord Praetor.
A rumble of hidden gears caused Kratos to turn in the same direction, in time to see the huge portal rumbling open and a blaze of light from the adjoining flight deck flooding between the receding doors. 20 figures were silhouetted against the dark, far bulkier than any normal space marine. As his eyes adjusted, Kratos recognized the Terminator armor, but unlike anything he had seen in a long time. The warplate of the Terminators was far broader and taller than standard legionary power armor, and these had an exoskeletal frame carrying slanted plates of extra armor. all decorated in the dark green livery of the salamanders. Their hands were fashioned in a variety of powered fists, claws, and chain blades designed for close combat, anti-armor assault, and bulkhead cutting. And in the right they carried an assortment of weapons ranging from simple combi bolters to triple-barreled autocannons, plasma charges, and rocket launchers, and one carried an immensely rare, long-muzzled Volkite culverin. Yet it was not these amendments that amazed Kratos. The Iron Hands had numerous experimental suits of Terminator armor, with modified heavy weaponry, and ablative shields. What stole the curse from Kratos' lips was the additional weapon systems mounted across the backpacks and shoulders of the Terminators. A plethora of armor-piercing missiles, las cannons, multi-melters and conversion beamers were all pointing in his direction. Each was quite literally a walking tank. The voice of REE emanated from the external vocalizer of the...
So they're technologically packed, it seems like, the Iron Hands now. And I guess that just comes with their ability to forge shit now. And I guess one of the benefits of having a reduced number count at this point, right, is they probably still have the ability to mass produce all this really goated equipment, right? So it just means that their limited numbers are probably going to be equipped to the fucking nines. Like, they are actually just truly an elite, like, force now to be reckoned with. Versus, right, like before, if I had 100,000, right, they had this goated equipment, but it's like not every guy would see that goated equipment. Others would be equipped as like a base, like, you know, the termies he's seen are salamanders. That's true. That's true. That's fair. That's fair. I don't know. That's just what my logic like comes to think, though, right? Like, ideally, right, they wouldn't lose their ability to manufacture equipment. And if they're really good at it, like their Primarch was super good at it, so ideally they would be too, right? I don't know if they have STCs that allow them to do that or what have you, but let's see. And like, yeah, the salamanders too. The salamanders are always goated. Let's be honest here. The salamanders are arguably even better than they are, right? So,
walking tank.
This armor is Vulcan's personal design.
Emanated from the external vocalizer of the lead warrior.
Sounds impressive.
Spearhead Centurion Kratos. Welcome aboard the Hearthfire. These suits were designed by Vulcan himself, and we were about to transit them to the surface of Istvan when the massacre began. The Primarch gave me a direct order not to allow them to fall into the hands of the traitors, hence our swift departure.
RE swung first to the left and then to the right, looking at the row of warriors behind him.
You mentioned something about trying to take my ship from me.
If the situation had not been so fraught, RE might have enjoyed the moment of hesitation before Kratos reluctantly raised his hand in salute and bowed his head to the approaching Pyre Warden. The Salamander's commander had not intended to humiliate his counterpart in this fashion. It had been happenstance that Kratos had launched his ridiculous coup, as RE and the others were about to board their gunships in the neighboring launch bay.
I expect you to return to the Forsyths immediately.
RE raised his powered fist and pointed to the storm strike.
And take your legionaries with you.
What a waste,
replied the Centurion. He waved a hand at the Terminators, shaking his head slowly.
Vulcan entrusted you with his work, and this is how you use it? Even with these armored suits, you cannot take the World Eater's fortress alone. Be thankful that there will be nothing for the enemy once I have annihilated the city after your deaths. It is not the armor or weapon that makes the warrior. It is the spirit. You will fail. Your sentimentality will be your undoing. The flesh is weak.
I have heard you say that phrase on several occasions since our first encounter.
I like how he's calling him out for that.
I'm not sure that you really understand what it means.
You may have spoken with the Gorgon, but do not think to school me in the teachings of my own Primarch.
What you say, the flesh is weak, is only part of the saying. In forgetting the end, you have lost the meaning. Vulcan said it in praise of Ferrus Manus after the 184th expedition when our legions jointly liberated the orc-dominated worlds of the Shokshua cluster. The fighting had been fiercer than anything we had expected. Your Primarch said in jest that his arm was tired from killing so many orcs, and Vulcan retorted with, "The flesh is weak, but deeds endure." It was a celebration of what they had achieved, and a remark that even Primarchs can die, but what they do will last beyond their lifespan. It was a message of humility, not condemnation. Flesh is weak because it knows it must come to an end, and so we must rise above the concerns of flesh and leave a legacy that others will be proud to inherit. Ferrus Manus understood that. He was a harsh master, an unforgiving ally, but he was also a maker of things. A builder, not a destroyer.
Kratos stepped back.
I was gonna say, he didn't even interrupt him there. He just let him sit there and monologue, fucking roast him for like a minute straight. Like, you fucking idiot, you don't know where the phrase comes from. Do you forget? Yeah, this is where it is. This, I was there, I remember. Oh, it was just a jest. It was a simple, like, act of humility, Yeah, you fucking idiot. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and he just like, absolutely just roasted him there. He probably just rocked his perception. This is going to be kind of funny, I think. Holy shit. That was a good one. I like that.
A builder, not a destroyer.
Kratos stepped back, shocked by RA's words. In a moment, he had
mouth
recovered,
agape.
his confusion quickly turning to irritation.
Another lecture. It doesn't matter what you say. The only thing you're going to leave behind on Prestes are corpses.
Kratos spun away, shouting for his men to embark onto the gunship. He followed them up the ramp and paused. At the top he looked back, with the last shake of the head. RE returned to his warriors and ordered the launch bay sealed again as they lined up to board the dropships. RE looked up and saw dark blurs descending towards the ground.
Torpedoes,
he muttered, not quite believing Kratos had finally acted. Even the Terminator suits would be no defense against the ordnance designed to breach the hulls of battleships. If it spelled the end for the Salamanders, it also heralded destruction for the World Eaters. RE contented himself with the thought that had he not taken out the shield generator, the forces would be using mass drivers and anti-ship missiles rather than pinpoint laser strikes. There would be deaths in the city, but far fewer because of the Salamander's actions. The quiet, confident voice of Veshtar broke through the fog of confusion and disappointment that clouded RE's thoughts as he watched the dark smudges glowing larger above the citadel.
Those aren't torpedoes.
Pinpricks of fire became recognizable, flares of retro rockets firing. The torpedoes resolved into drop pods, several dozen of them, as they slammed into the rockcrete of the killing ground. Some petaled open, discharging flurries of explosive warheads that slashed bloody holes through the World Eaters, slave soldiers. Squads of legionary warriors poured from others, bolts, plasma, and laser fire adding to the torrent of deadly fire. A second wave.
I just think the irony in like the World Eaters using slave soldiers, dude. That cracks me up. I like that a lot, What the fuck? Bastards,
Plasma and laser fire adding to the torrent of deadly fire. A second wave of larger craft hit the ground a few seconds later, their armored skin shed by explosive charges to reveal Predator tanks, Vindicator siege tanks, and a dreadnought. The Salamanders parted to allow the Iron Hand's armor to form an attacking lance, pointed directly towards the inner fortifications. Lasers, whirlwind missiles, autocannon shells, and a storm of other ordnance converge on the keep, lighting it with dozens of detonations and slicing beams. A Predator tank slewed to a halt beside RE, and he looked up to see the command hatch in the blocky turret flip open. Helmetless, spearhead Centurion Kratos emerged from the inside of the tank. He raised a fist to his forehead, and then he cupped his hands to shout down over the din of the growling engines. and the crash of the Citadel wall falling under the bombardment.
Your flank is secured. Push forward, Lord Praetor. I should not have doubted the strength we gain from righteous conviction. Let us leave a worthy legacy together. My thanks for setting me back on the right path. Deeds endure.
Damn, dude. What the fuck? Well, I mean, I guess it worked out in the end. Good for them. You know what? You know what? At least he saw sense. At least he saw sense, you know? The plan was good. Listen, the salamanders don't usually fuck around, you know? They're good dudes. They do have their shortcomings, right? But they're, you know, they generally don't fuck around. They're pretty good, and their equipment is baller. So like that usually carries the day. If not the fact that you know, they are just effective at what they do. You know, the Horus Heresy.
You will never trust. You will never dilute your strength by fighting alongside another. We alone are strong. Honorable men are beloved of those who make metals, and those who dig holes in the ground for the dead. Iron is unbeholden to honor.
Sergeant Kratos began his bombardment. The World Eater's facility was shielded, but with enough ammunition it could be destroyed from the safety of orbit. An action blocked by the salamander RAINJJ with his own vessel. The salamanders numbered barely a dozen, compared to Kratos' over 200 iron hands. The World Eater's recruitment facility was creating more of these tormented Hastatis, fit with that abomination the Butcher's nails. The bombardment that Kratos had begun would wipe not just their enemies, but the civilians of this world too, whose only crime was being born to a world garrisoned by a traitor force. The discussions were fruitless. They were meant to be allies, and RAINJJ outranked his Iron Hand brethren, but yet they both knew the Salamander couldn't do much in the end. Only the shared pain of Istvan V and the bonds of unity had halted Kratos from blasting the object that blocked his guns. RAINJJ knew that vengeance had consumed Sergeant Kratos, the one that had consumed all the Iron Hands in the years of the Horus Heresy.
That
was
makes
their
sense.
Primarch like them? Or were they akin to their Primarch? That characteristic stubbornness, the promise to fulfill the path chosen by any means. Kratos and the Iron Hands despised the traitors more than anything. They would do anything, whatever it took to burn them to the ground. RAINJJ counseled Kratos that even now in this war against heresy, that he had to think of the Imperium to come, of how they would rebuild after Horus is dead. The flesh is weak, Kratos sputtered. The philosophy that had been poured into him like molten metal into a mold, from the black and grey harsh skies of Medusa, all the way to the stars. All those born upon Medusa had endured that harsh environment, the brutal recruitment, and training for a legion in the name of Ferrus Manus, the Gorgon of Medusa. The temperament of the salamanders was alien to Kratos. He could only see his counterpart's concern for this compromised civilian population as foolish, as weak. RAINJJ's humanity here was proving to be a weakness. His flesh was weak.
Oh my god.
Returning to their vessel with no compromise reached, Kratos awaited for commands he knew he would not obey, though he had no desire to destroy his comrades, but nor would he suffer the World Eaters to live, to recruit. Kratos' patience wore out, and he prepared to board the Salamander's vessel to seize it. Stepping onto the deck with his greater numbers, Sergeant Kratos found that it was he who was outgunned, as he turned to see a dozen salamanders armored in enormous, saturnine Terminator armor. The ambush had been turned upon itself.
Fuck.
As Kratos with shock and then anger, as he knew he was outplayed. RAINJJ and his brothers were going down to the surface. They knew it was their doom. The illogical choice. Once I have annihilated the city after your deaths, it is not the armor or weapons that makes the warrior. It is the spirit. You will fail. Your sentimentality will be your undoing. The flesh is weak. RAE caught him there. What you say, the flesh is weak, is only part of the saying. In forgetting the end, you have lost the meaning. The flesh is weak, but deeds endure. It was a celebration of what Vulcan and Ferret had achieved, and a remark that even Primarchs can die, but what they will do will last beyond their lifespan. It was a message of humility, not condemnation. Flesh is weak, because it knows it must come to an end, and so we must rise above the concerns of flesh, and leave a legacy that others will be proud to inherit. Ferrus Manus understood that. He was a harsh master, an unforgiving ally, but he was also a maker of things, a builder, not a destroyer.
That's true.
The words cut deep. Vengeance had consumed Kratos, all of the Iron Hands, even those who had destroyed their humanity and become revenant machines, the Gola. Ferrus was dead, and all his sons had taken away from his life was only half the picture.
Yeah, the Gola are crazy, and I feel like that's like the ultimate like the Iron Hands are very much like the polar opposite of the Salamanders, which like I very much like we're comparing Perturabo to Ferrus, I guess, but like legion wise, like I was kind of thinking their legions would be almost alike too, but that's not really the case. It's really like the Salamanders and the Iron Hands are kind of like the polar opposites here. They're both like the smithing legions, you know, they both create shit. They're both you know, very good makers of things, I guess, in a sense. And it's just very interesting to see. Or is the legion itself not good at making stuff and it's just the Primarch, you know? I wonder if that's the case, because it seems like with the Salamanders, like, you know, Vulcan being a god tier designer and smith obviously carried down to his legion, right? Versus I don't know if the same can be said with Ferrus to that degree. I'm not too sure, you know? Somebody let me know.
All his sons had taken away from his life was only half the picture. The flesh is weak. So Ferrus had spoken. He had never been afraid of death, but of never leaving a legacy. During the Great Crusade, they were building an imperium for a golden age of humanity. Ferrus crafted. He made engines of war, but he also made gifts for those he cared for, such as Fulgrim and Vulcan. The flesh was weak. One day even he would wither and die, so by his deeds he would live on, remembered by the people he had built the future for, the Iron Hands, Medusa, and humanity. Armoured in their saturnine Terminator suits, RAE and his salamanders made planetfall.
The Legion's
like
good at smithing too? Okay,
they
that's good.
burst into the
That's what I
world
assumed.
facility, fire and plasma pouring from the exoskeletal guns. They reaped a heavy toll upon the traitors, but slowly one by one, RAE's brothers began to fall. The mission would cost them their lives, but many others would live as they finally reached the shield generator and destroyed it. RAE looked to the sky, surprised Kratos had even waited before beginning the now targeted bombardment. But the dark silhouettes weren't missiles. Astartes drop pods glowed from the heat of the atmosphere and rocketed down beside RAE. Kratos and the Iron Hands chose the illogical but human choice. They would fight beside their brothers. I should not have doubted the strength we gain from righteous conviction. Let us leave a worthy legacy together. My thanks for setting me back on the right path. Deeds endure. To live by your own convictions and not those of your enemy. That is true revenge. That would be the sons of Medusa's vengeance. The Iron Hands had been shattered, their Primarch murdered, and his corpse a trophy for Astartes that had fallen to creatures of the warp. But even with their weak human flesh, they made the traitors bleed, all taking a toll as Horus plunged towards Terra. The galaxy held its breath as the siege of Terra had begun. The Iron Hands too far away to further influence the outcome. The legends, such as Shadrach Medusan, Bion Henricos, Cybec Wayland, Amadeus Duquesne, Gabriel Santar, and many others will be remembered as heroes of the Horus Heresy. A time of myth etched into the walls inside Medusa's innermost sanctums. The Imperium had won. Horus had been slain, but the Emperor had been crippled, interned upon the golden throne as a carrion lord. The traitors were scourged from the ravaged Imperium, cast into the warp rift known as the Eye of Terror. It would be now that the galaxy would be cursed forever, to know only war. The remnants of the 10th Legion,
said the line.
The scattered warbands finally had breathing room, but before they could become a legion once again, the Primarch Rabute Gilliman unveiled the Codex Astartes. Each legion was broken down into 1,000-man chapters. Never again would one individual be capable of wielding so much power like Horus had, like a Primarch could. The barely few thousand Iron Hands railed against it, even if they knew that after the shattering each cell had grown apart, some embodying the worst excesses of their core philosophy. The flesh is weak. Others who had alloyed with the strength of other legions and tactics that could not return to the old ways. It was with the return of the skull of their lord, the Primarch Ferrus Manus, by Rogel Dawn, that the 10th Legion agreed to the Codex Astartes. The time of the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy passed from living memory. Millennia fell away like sand in an hourglass, as the Iron Hands fought horrifying Xenos and rebelling worlds across the Imperium for millennia. The legacy of Ferrus Manus, much like the Imperium itself, began to rot. You will never trust. You will never dilute your strength by fighting alongside another. We alone are strong. Honorable men are beloved of those who make medals, and those who dig holes in the ground for the dead. Iron is unbeholden to honor. The time of the Gorgon of Medusa to halt his son's reliance on iron and augmetics never came to pass.
Damn,
All
dude.
that was left of the wisdom was the weakness of flesh. Eroding with each millennia, the sons of Medusa began to lock away their humanity. Never again would the Iron Hands be shamed by the failures of human emotion. Iron was strong. Iron didn't make mistakes. Iron didn't get angry. Iron didn't care for honor or brotherhood.
I suppose
the Iron
not.
Hands aspired to the purity of the blessed machine. Their flesh would decay and rot, but through the machine god and the Omnisire, they would become immortal.
Damn, dude.
It
I have
wasn't good
Medusa.
enough. His body was weak. He had always known, but attachment to flesh had made him resistant to the action required. His encounter with Lideric had provided the final push he needed. He assumed that his friend had returned to his own ship, possibly sharing an orbit somewhere on the other side of the blockade, but in a way that no longer mattered. In the photo-bleached color blotches that floated out of reach, above his flesh eye he saw the red eyes of Captain Hasrid, closer to him than the ceiling lumens were now. Part of him recoiled from the memory, but he made himself face
That's why the
it.
Iron Hand chapter
The
is more
son of
dreadnoughts than any
Korax,
other
a
chapter.
death
That would make
spectre
sense,
he had later
actually.
learned, having made inquiries of the cross.
I bet you they do that shit
with the commandant
just for
Imager
funsies, to be
Archive,
honest.
had come upon him completely unawares. If he had been hostile, then Stronos would be dead. Add to that his humbling before the Iron Council and his wayward actions on Thenos, and it showed a pattern of behavior that demonstrated his fault. The Eye was an obvious target. It nagged him for decades, and its replacement was an important step on his drive towards perfection. That it simultaneously deferred actions on the aspirations Lideric had cast against the Adeptus Mechanicus, he had noted and deemed incidental. Any action he might take now would be suspect in any event. For all he had been discomforted at first, he found that he craved the surety of the clan interlink now. He desired the strength of his brother's will to brace his own. The flesh was weak. The bright metal cabinets fitted against the bulkheads rattled as someone entered. His first thought was that it was Haas, wheeling in a chirurgical trolley, but again his senses fell below expectation. It was Ares. The dreadnought towered over the stowed instrumentarium, the restricted space making
he just
his
allowed to be
armored
in here?
frame appear even more massive.
He's just a
His blocky
dreadnought
torso
wandering around
pivoted
in
as
here.
if to survey the room thoroughly before entering. His optic slits appeared to alight upon Stronos only by chance.
Is Stronos injured?
Stronos considered the silence, but decided that he could keep nothing from the ancient.
I am defective. I seek to rectify that.
How so?
The Raven's son proved himself my superior. I must improve and adapt.
Improve and adapt. We recall a time when Iron Hands were less like Christos and more like Kardan Stronos. They were ruthless, yes, but adaptable. Not slaves to calculus.
How distracted
You
do you have
should
to
have
be to have a
said as
dreadnought
much
sneak
before
up
the
on
eye
you?
of
Yeah,
Medusa.
pretty distracted.
Stronos returned, bitterly, his gaze fixed to the ceiling plating.
Like, I just imagine that guy is like straight up just like Mad Max level of like in the black. Like he's just fucking like death staring out into like nothing. You know what I mean? Big ass like fucking what 20-ton like dreadnought fucking vroom, 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 fucking like you don't hear that? Motherfucker, they're not stealthy. Like I'll be honest, they're not exactly they're not exactly a great ambush vehicle, let's call it. They're pretty loud, you know. I don't know.
Stronos returned, bitterly, his gaze
This guy's
fixed
going
to
through an
the
update
ceiling
period, I
plating.
suppose.
Darsic cast our vote as we saw right. Our word would have made no difference.
When you first stood before me, you declared the Iron Council would feel your wrath for their failure to hold Thenos. Your fury was sound. What became of it?
Such strength of feeling is difficult to hold on to. In time, perhaps. Stronos will know this too.
Stronos scowled. The facial twitch lengthened the visual wavelength from infrared to microwave. The power conduits buried within the ceiling above his cot became a shadowy smear of crimson.
You believed the decision of the Council to be errant, yet you left the argument to Verox.
From each according to his ability.
Said Ares. It sounded like a quotation.
Ferox is passionate and persuasive, even when Tubric wore flesh in place of iron. The Vergan were thought primitive. Now we wonder if they are not the sole champions of the Iron Creed, as once we knew it.
Stronos turned his head to regard the dreadnought. The metal roundels of his forechain bumped against the pallet, and he resisted the urge to touch the augmetic vertebrae, suddenly bitterly angry.
Irrelevant. All of it irrelevant. The Iron Council is ruled. It is clearly our decision-making that is in error, not theirs. I will not weaken my brothers by standing alongside them in this imperfect state.
We feel that we should experience contempt for such self-delusion, yet we find that we cannot care. How far from our father's likeness we have both fallen.
Haas re-entered by another door.
You are beyond my skills to restore, Venerable.
Said the apothecary, bluntly, as a headless servitor pushed a Medicaid trolley, and a whippish thing in crimson robe squeezed through the already cramped quarters.
Jesus.
The Magos biologist rolled up long sleeves, and rubbed his hands with counterseptic jelly, while the servitor maneuvered around Stronos' bedside, its trolley rattling carelessly over the tension.
With respect, Iron Father, your presence here serves no purpose.
He waited a moment, during which Ares offered a blank wall by way of reply, and then added,
You take up space. Leave.
The
Holy
Christosian
shit.
question makes all matters subject to doubt.
Like, yeah, he
Stronos
does
said
take
to
up space. He's
Ares,
big as fuck.
voice low.
All will be as it once was, once the arguments are resolved.
Ares turned from the apothecary to him. His emptiness seemed for a moment sorrowful.
Kardan Stronos speaks of the arguments, but what does he know of the question? For
I will say, though, it does take quite a bit of balls to, like, look up to a vulnerable dreadnought and say, piss off and move. You take up space, like, you're actually in the fucking way. Do you mind? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it does take quite a bit of balls to be able to do that, I will say. Good for him.
Stronos speaks of the arguments, but what does he know of the question? For there is only one.
Stronos made to formulate an answer, only to realize he had none. Often he had railed against the waste of energy that the Conclave brought on the Iron Council, but had never found the time to learn for himself what, in effect, it was all for. He shook his head honestly. He had been built to be a war machine. This round voyage to Medusa was the first time since his novitation that he had not been either in the thick of a war zone or in transit from one to another.
Better to leave questions of doctrine to the Tech Priests and the Iron Fathers,
said Haas, moving to Stronos' pallet, and the waiting servitor even as he spoke. At the mention of his order, the Magos looked up, but did not interrupt. Stronos frowned at the mortal. For every Iron Hand warrior on Medusa and scattered across the Imperium, there were thousands of servitors, menials and adepts of the Adeptus Mechanicus to service their needs. Noticing his regard, the adept quickly looked away. Stronos found himself wondering what else the unseen legions on which the chapter so depended might see and hear. A non-verbal burst of scorn rang from Ares' vocalizer.
And you call yourselves men of iron, you who cede all free will to others and call it strength. Do you even know how the conclave began?
I know little of Christos beyond his roll of honors,
said Stronos, stung.
I know that he was once considered an exemplar of the Iron Creed.
As it is now interpreted for you, perhaps.
What do you mean by that?
Demanded Haas. Ares did not answer directly.
It began on Columbus.
Everyone knows
Columbus,
Haas said, dismissively, then picked up a spoon-headed implement from his Medicaid trolley and bent towards Stronos.
And what happened there to cause such crisis?
Ares countered. Stronos couldn't answer. He looked to Haas. The apothecary let out a frustrated sigh and said nothing, focusing instead on Stronos' eye. He had no answer either.
Stow thy leeches, apothecary. There is to be no bloodletting today.
Ares backed out of the chirurgical bay and into the main space of the apothecarian. With some reluctance, Stronos sat up on his pallet and pushed Apothecary Haas from him.
Come, Kardan. We will show you what happened that day.
The Iron Hands. It is kind of crazy that the last hour Ferrus has been
Day
dead.
will come when I will strip it from me,
Whoa.
lest I lose the power to master myself forever. Already, my legion's warriors replace their shield hands with metal in my honor, and so they too are learning to doubt the natural strength of their bodies. They must be weaned off this practice before it becomes a mania for them. Hatred of what is natural, of what is human, is the first and greatest of the corruptions.
It is the 41st millennium, the grim dark future where the God Emperor of mankind sits upon the golden throne, a necrocracy to a rotting empire set upon all sides by Xenos and heresy. Upon the world of Medusa lay the Iron Hands chapter, who for over 10,000 years have fought the enemies of the Imperium. Across this world of dark stone and black smoke,
Did like that transition from like
the sons
30
of
to
the
40k.
Gorgon live in great bastions, fortress cities such as the Gorgon's Forge, a living example to the alliance between the Iron Hands and the Adeptus Mechanicus.
Damn,
Praise
dude.
be to the Omnisire and the Machine God.
Fuck's
the
sake.
direction of worship for the chapter, as they praise the holy union of flesh and machine. Sergeant Kardan Stronos finally returned to the world of his birth, after decades of non-stop war. The muted skies of this bleak world, an all too familiar visage, drained of colour, life, and vitality. His forged chain, an augmetic vertebrae link, each piece showing an acceptance into the various clans of Medusa, a sacred piece of the sons of the Gorgon in the 41st millennium, a neural link to his brothers that left communication to the machine. Hatred of what is natural, of what is human, is the first and greatest of the corruptions. But that wisdom of the Primarch Ferrus Manus never came to pass. For a chapter that had almost purged everything human about them. Stronos found no
Well, you guys are in bed with the Mechanicus,
so
so...
hit the black sands of Medusa once again. For Brotherhood had rotted away in the millennium.
Such a caring and friendly chapter? No. No, see, like, that's the thing. They're in bed with the Mechanicus, and we all know what the Mechanicus are prone to doing to their constituents, you know, let's call them. You know, the people living on Mechanicus worlds, you know, they don't have a good time typically. It's usually a pretty rough life typically from what we've seen. I wouldn't personally want to fuck with that myself. Yeah, I mean, give me an Imperium world any day. I would take I don't know. I'd say I'd take a Hive City, but like, yeah, I would definitely take a Hive City over just a giant Forge World Manufactorum, like under rule of the Mechanicus. Like that just sounds like ass. That sounds like something I don't want to be a part of.
Black sands of Medusa once again, for Brotherhood had rotted away in the millennia, before the machine efficiency of the Iron Hands chapter. Accompanied by the ancient venerable dreadnought
Wait until you
Ares,
encounter the Sons
a
of
true
Medusa.
traverse
Oh
of the
god.
chapter's innermost sanctums, the Eye of Medusa. At the heart of the planet, inside walls of black volcanic rock, carved with stories of glory, of the legacy of the Horus heresy, decorated in brutal Medusan steel, the two made their way to the home of the Iron Council. The sight of the guards, the Hellfathers, unnerved even him. Ancient Iron Hands who had turned the keys of hell. There were machines, barely human, aspects of death that sent shivers down the spines of mortal men. Inside the council's vault chamber, Stronos saw it, a senate of machine and steel. 41 seats occupied by the Iron Fathers and the holy veteran dreadnoughts, cabling and nodes attached to their minds as they communicated using binary chant and noospheric data blurts, themselves locked into towering iron thrones with spinal plugs and cranial taps, almost like human computers. Stronos and Ares had come to partition the use of full force against the rebelling world within the Medusan system, not knowing that they played a part in a grander debate within the chapter's elite. The Christos question. The proposition of Iron Father Christos himself for the future of the Iron Hands. The debate had lasted for centuries, the Iron Fathers questioning whether to throw away the last parts of their humanity. For is the flesh not weak? Though no longer elected chapter master, Christos had divided the council, the various clans choosing sides as ancient rivalries and deals were struck. The Adeptus Mechanicus' influence also evidenced to Stronos and Ares. An endless debate on the interpretation of the
Mechanicus
will
are
of
sitting there
Ferrus
like, do
Manus,
it.
10,000
Do it, pussies,
years
you won't.
after his death, all rooted in one truth. Stronos lay upon the apothecarian's table. His last human eye had failed him, unable to catch the Death Watch death spectre that accompanied his friend Lidric in their conversations inside the Eye of Medusa. He had also spoken out in anger. He had been emotional during the council's meeting as he decried the clear rigging of Christos and the Mechanicum's vote. He was defective, and so the flesh had to be replaced. The truth of the Iron Hands in the 40th millennium, the truth was that they despised themselves. The legacy of hatred towards their own flesh had rotted within them for millennia. they carved and butchered their own bodies, running away from their own weakness. Ancient Ares remembered a time when they were more like Stronos, a man and machine, still human rather than the cybernetic cold monster that was Christos. A time when Hastatis were not dominated by cybernetics and the use of neural inhibitors. Ares began to show Stronos the truth. In the vaults of Medusa, the two bore witness to the events on Columnus, reliving the memory through the recorded visuals of a long-dead battle brother. Through the nauseating static and battle, they saw the truth that was almost erased from history, almost hidden. Iron Father Christos bombarding the enemy and his own men. A
Damn,
cold,
dude.
tactical choice of a machine that did not have attachment to brotherhood.
True.
This was what their self-hatred
That's
had
facts.
wrought. A chapter of revenants, machine dead, that inspired as much fear as any Xenos or monster of chaos. The chapter became divided further. Astronos.
It is literally the case of like, if you turn yourself into machine, that's all well and good, but it means like you do not give a shit about anybody, right? You do not have that brotherhood that makes a legion, right? That makes a legion functional to the degree that it is and why they succeed in such regards, right? There's no care for anyone or anything. It's just numbers on a page, right? If it's acceptable losses, it's acceptable losses. And that's just like the problem that comes with the logical thinking of just a machine, right? That's the problem, right? So yeah, I think it's a mistake. It's sad to see the Iron Hands go down this way, but it's not surprising, let's say.
Of chaos. The chapter became divided further. Astronos' actions had drawn the attention of the Christonians faction. War broke out as two sides battled for the soul of the sons of Ferrus Manus, all leading to the revelations that shook the chapter to the core. The Sapphire King, a demon born from the psychic backlash of the death of Ferrus Manus upon Isvan V, had manipulated them. It had fed upon the Iron Hand's self-hatred and desperate need to suppress their emotions. The action in itself an extreme that fueled chaos. Iron Father Christos had been corrupted centuries ago, a pawn to unleash the machinations of the Sapphire King.
Damn,
It
dude.
had not been a strength to suppress
Holy
their
shit.
emotions. They had only bottled them up, compressing them down to the
So they
point
were
that
getting
they
played.
exploded in a violent release. As the chapter engaged in a brutal civil war, Cardan Stronos was struck by the revelation that by cutting off their emotions, his battle brothers were only causing themselves to fall to the corrupting influence of chaos. Their only chance to save themselves was not by cutting themselves off from their emotions, but by embracing them and shackling them to their iron will. The disgusting Sapphire King, accompanied by the accursed Emperor's children and the corrupted Christonians, charged at the surviving Iron Hands. The battle brutal and bloody, Stronos and all of them feeling the touch of chaos, trying to break in and weaken them, to make them push their emotions down, until it exploded. Stronos ordered his chapter, no, his brothers, to release their anger, lest their foes destroy them with it. They were machine, but locked within them was the fury of the Gorgon of Medusa, slayer of Azirnoth, scaler of Karashi, uniter of Medusa and son of the Emperor of Mankind. Their emotions no longer their weakness or shame, but strength. The Battle Brothers disengaged their inhibitor protocols
Damn.
and loosened their furious battle cries.
So they go for
As
a little
the
bit of that
emotional
anger on
floodgates
treatment.
burst open, the Iron Hands turned upon the forces of chaos, working together with feelings like trust and brotherhood. Once
Insane.
again in their veins, they outclassed their enemies. The Sapphire King shrieked in rage as they obliterated its form from the material universe. The chapter had suffered numerous losses. Half of the Iron Fathers were dead, and many of their numbers slain by their own hands. But they were pure, once more. Our chapter was driven to the very lip of the precipice. We were forced to stare over its edge, into the Stygian depths, into the darkness that awaits us should we ever fall. Yet fall we did not. What saved us from this terrible plunge, brothers? What has proved our redemption? Not logic, not the desperate, dogmatic purge of all things perceived as weak. It were our souls that saved us, and the strength we hold within ourselves, our courage, our choler. It was these qualities which makes us more than just unthinkable steel, that pulled us back from the brink. The path towards perfection was shaped by the gift of failure. Wisdom the Gorgon knew. Electing their new chapter master, Cardan Stronos, the sons of the Gorgon would no longer suppress their emotions. They would conquer it. They would alloy it with the strength of iron, and live a legacy worthy of Ferrus Manus. The flesh is weak, but deeds endure. And to have courage, to at times make not the logical, but human choice, required something the machine could not provide. Humanity. Perhaps one day they will choose to strip the metal from them, lest they lose the power to master themselves. But the Imperium, the Omnisire, and the Emperor of mankind required perfect warriors to destroy the enemies of the Imperium, the sons of the Gorgon, the legacy of Ferrus Manus, the Iron Hands.
Damn, dude. I'm glad that they actually like had a resurgence, right? It's sad that they had that civil war, but that civil war kind of meant that they like at least were able to kind of right themselves in that way. I was kind of good. So in the modern 40k setting, they're actually like still decent. They're still loyal. There's nothing wrong with them in that regard. Wow, guys, I think that's the end there. Yeah, it looks like that's the end there. Yeah, that was Ferrus Manus, the Primarch who died by the Amber King, ladies and gentlemen. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in there for that. I thought the story of Ferrus was decent. I could kind of see some parts here and there where, you know, there was less lore, and that is sad to see. But he seems like an interesting character, and I have to say, I would say he's more sociable than Perturabo, probably. I would have to say so. Perturabo is very much, you know, Ferrus has his moments where he's an asshole, but he's not like an asshole without like purpose, I guess. Does that make sense in a way? Versus I feel like Perturabo very much like was and is, you know? And although Perturabo does have like, you know, relationships, like he has a relationship with Magnus, right, I guess. I don't know, it just didn't feel like, I guess, as decent as like Fulgrim's and Ferrus's. Like, they spent months together. They like made each other gifts, you know what I mean? They were like forging together. They competed. They jived a little bit. You know, it seemed like a good time, you know. But ultimately, I guess he's the one who killed him. So who, you know, what do I know? I guess at the end of the day. But yeah, I thought he was a decent character. I actually didn't mind him at all. Surprised you don't hear about them more. I guess the reason you don't hear about them more is because, again, like the lack of lore. But damn, dude, like, you know. Doesn't seem like a bad legion at all. Like, I would definitely be interested in learning a little bit more about them sometime, because it's like, I feel like they don't get enough love, that's for sure. It doesn't feel like they do anyway. They needed that civil war. Definitely seems like they needed that civil war. That civil war seemed necessary for the Iron Hands to continue as they were as a loyalist legion at that point. They were literally the closest of any brothers at one point. That's exactly what I'm saying. That's what it felt like. You know what I mean? And I feel like, you know, for as maybe not social as Ferrus is, he was still able to maintain that relationship, like one of the closest brotherly relationships, I guess, that we've seen, you know? So that does kind of mean something to me, I guess, a little bit in a way, you know, it kind of shows something to me. But no, I thought this was a great one, guys. If you guys enjoy, hit that like button again. I know a lot of you have. Hit that like button if you haven't. Subscribe for more content from me, of course. Leave your recommendations down in the comments below what you guys want me to check out next. And big thank you to all of our members, all of our Hastati, our Triarii, Principe, Dagenhart, and of course, our Prefect, Hobbit. I appreciate you guys. You guys inspire me to make more content for you guys every single day. And yeah, I say we end the video here. I'm gonna post schedule an upload for tomorrow, so we'll have some videos uploaded for tomorrow, and we'll be getting some stuff uploaded for the rest of the week here. We should, if I got some time, you know. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in as always. Without any further delay, this has been Centurion. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, guys.